You control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160, and you can use that number to call in and bring up whatever is on your mind. With you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Mr. Penguin.
And Mr. Penguin, we have lots of things to talk about tonight, and I think that even some of the stuff I brought in is kind of like penguin topics.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So
anything liberty-oriented.
Well, yeah, I agree, but we all kind of have our our subjects we're more interested in. And one of those for me recently has been the whole thing with Venezuela. I was going to say Trump starting a war with Venezuela, but honestly, everything he's doing.
Yep.
Did you hear that he literally said this? I think you're going to see that this is war.
I did not see that.
Yeah.
No,
said that concerning
but
Venezuela.
I mean, I am aware of the ships that he's been blowing up, and the tankers he's been seizing.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And he also made a U.S. blockade of Venezuela as far as their oil trade. I'm not sure exactly who that, does that apply to everyone? Is the U.S. telling every country they cannot buy oil there?
Yeah, basically, anything that's on the U.S., any oil tanker that's on the U.S. sanctions list, basically. Now, what people have to understand is that it's a U.S. sanctions list. It's not a, some sort of international sanctions list where, nobody can do business with Venezuela. It's U.S. So there's no international law. It's not legal at the international level under international law. What the U.S. is doing is illegal, actually.
Wow. Yeah.
It's the other way to phrase it is it's an act of war. The U.S. is basically committing an act of war on Venezuela.
Wow.
So if Venezuela were to say, defend itself, it would be within every right, under international law to do so.
Wow. It does seem like an act of war. I hadn't heard that.
It's definitely an act of war, yeah.
But trying to stop them from being able to trade with their number one probably resource. It must be their number one resource, right? You always hear about oil.
Oh yeah, that's 90-something% of the economy in Venezuela, from what I understand.
So this article from Wall Street Journal says U.S. oil blockade of Venezuela pushes Cuba toward collapse, and I thought that was kind of interesting because it's now we're looking at how other countries and other people in other countries are now suffering from this weird thing that Trump's trying to do to Venezuela that doesn't even make sense because who wants this? Who asked for this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's basically bullying at the international level. It's piracy. It's the United States committing piracy against Venezuela because not only are they blocking the ships from getting in or out, they're actually seizing the ships, and then they're actually taking the oil off the ships, and we technically don't know nothing has happened yet as far as I know because there's a process that it goes through, but basically what's going to happen is that oil is going to get sold and then the profits are going to go into the U.S. government's pocket under U.S. law.
You mean the ones that they seized? Yeah.
Yep. But it's illegal. But nonetheless, it's illegal. Right. The U.S. has illegally stolen, oil from Venezuela and it's basically, or at least ships, going to and from Venezuela
with oil on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically speaking, these ships are not necessarily Venezuela flagged ships, but they're doing business with Venezuela, and it's not like the ships are going to the United States where they could then maybe be legally seized. They're in international water where they're being seized. So yeah, I mean for a guy who says he's not going to get us into any international wars, this is literally an act of war. I mean, you're just short of declaring war and you're committing acts of war. So it's but then again, I mean, politicians are hypocrites, right?
Well, I did hear them explicitly say that they were planning to sell the oil on it.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what comes next. There's a legal process within U.S. law, but it's not so normally the thing that's really messed up about this.
I'm sure they always get to decide that it's legal for them to do what they want.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Once they have it, they don't care where it came from. And this is really messed up.
Yeah.
So basically what's going to happen is they're taking these tankers to U.S. ports, and then it'll end up going through a process because under U.S. law, it's sanctioned. But again, it's you can't go into another country and kidnap people and bring them back. That's the kind of thing that North Korea does that they get criticized for all the time. They've kidnapped I
People
don't
that ran away?
thousands of people from like Japan and other countries.
Wait,
And
of their quote unquote their own people?
No.
Oh, just Japanese people?
We're talking about literally Japanese, not just Japanese, but Japanese, yeah. And they did that. They've done that in order to train their own like spies and things.
Wow.
Anyway, but like the United States does the same thing. Not okay. So I don't necessarily know about for spy purposes, but for other reasons, it will kidnap people overseas. It's called rendition, I believe it's called. And where they kidnap people from overseas, and then once they get to the United States, the courts don't care that it was illegal. There was no proper extradition that occurred. It's people. The United States criticizes countries like Venezuela and North Korea and Cuba and other countries, but yet it then does basically the same kind of things that are clearly unequivocally illegal under international law. So it's really hard to get upset over what Venezuela is doing from that perspective. Now I think it's completely.
You mean upset over if they retaliate?
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only that.
Then
but
what do you mean by
it's hard
what
to
they're
get
doing?
upset over Venezuela committing basically war crimes and things when the United States is doing the same thing.
What
right?
is the war crimes you're saying they're doing, Venezuela?
Oh, that's an interesting question because we haven't actually, haven't really even thought about it. Actually, I don't know that they would be war crimes that I'm thinking of. But,
just like selling their oil against the United States' wishes?
No.
Oh.
Because there's nothing illegal about that.
I wouldn't think so.
At an international level. It would only be illegal for them to like maybe sell it to some American company or something like that in the U.S. or something. But then, of course, the tankers would be seized if those tankers came to the United States. So that's obviously not happening.
Well, we should get into this article and it'll tell us more about.
Yeah. So the thing the Venezuelan thing that's going on is basically the president has basically declared himself a dictator and for life kind of situation. And he's refusing to surrender power to the.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not a war crime, but the point that I'm making
like
is
human rights.
Yeah, it's a human rights type of issue, which universally Trump has also been accused of. I'm a little skeptical that you can call what Trump did, equivalent, but
well, what about people dying in? I must have lost that article, but I had articles about like multiple people dying in ICE custody and stuff like that, and like these people that are getting arrested for no reason.
So I mean, that's way worse. That kind of stuff that's going on. Under Trump. But the thing is that people have to remember this stuff has been going on before. A lot of this stuff has been going on before Trump.
Yeah.
Trump is basically what's different about Trump is he's using these actions for public relations reasons, right?
Like it's a good thing in his viewers' minds.
Yeah. I mean,
supporters.
a lot of the crimes that have been committed by the United States occurred under prior presidents. And Trump is basically just continuing on sort of with the status quo, but people are getting upset about it. Or they're getting upset about it because maybe he's crossing maybe a line that previous presidents didn't necessarily cross.
Like one thing he's been doing is that's definitely crossing a line is making like these videos and putting them out like celebrating all the ICE arrests, and that is making people really mad. I'm not saying it's a line as in like,
I don't know if that's a line being crossed, but like I get what you're saying, right? He hasn't done that, right? And that's a publicity thing, right? That's completely publicity. But the thing is like a lot of times these are like there's like when you start talking about like numbers and things, there's probably and I don't know this with certainty, but I imagine there probably isn't like some sort of substantial like increase, for example, in the number of extraditions that are occurring under Trump. What we're seeing is more public relations.
I
don't know that either.
Was really interested in that article.
I suspect that's not the case, and I think that's what I kind of have heard is that we're not actually seeing like substantial increases in deportations. That's what he wants, but that's not necessarily what's occurring because there still are processes. And that's the thing when people say, "Oh, well, he's not following the law or whatever." Well, in some respects, I can understand that argument, but on the same time, he's interpreting the law, and it may not be the way we like it or want it. generally speaking, but like every president does this kind of thing. They do these things, and it's like, okay, they shouldn't have done those things, but it's like it takes a lot of energy and effort for all sorts of different organizations, particularly organizations like the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I'm trying to think some of the other ones. There's a libertarian law firm, which you probably know the name of.
That does what?
Libertarian law firm.
Oh, just the Institute for Justice?
Yeah, Institute for Justice. That's it. Anyway, I just had a tip of my tongue. I can't think of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, these organizations, every time there's a new president who comes into power, they're fighting all sorts of things, that these presidents are, doing that, are illegal, or their administration's doing that are illegal. And it takes a ton of money and resources and everything else.
Yeah. And in some of the cases, like the things that people are doing wrong, it's not even necessarily Trump himself, it's the judge, like making bad calls, like illegally saying it's okay to keep arresting someone who shouldn't have been arrested,
there's a lot of bad calls by judges, and it's like,
and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, Trump didn't do anything wrong. I'm simply saying I don't know, to your point.
Yeah. One of the problems with our system is that we have judges, and most of these judges are former prosecutors. They're not, there's this idea that they're supposed to be impartial, but that's not the way the system is set up. The system is not set up to put impartial people into judgeships. It's set up to put prosecutors into judgeships, and they, of course, have a bias because they've moved up the ladder over the years by gaining convictions. That's because that's how you move up the ladder. And when you become a prosecutor, you move up the ladder by getting convictions, when you prosecute a case. So the more convictions you get, the better, the better chances you are that you move up the ladder, that kind of thing. Our system is just, we have problems. Like, our system itself has major problems in addition to the people that we elect. So it's kind of there's a combination of issues that go on in that regard.
Well, I agree with that. And the only thing that I disagree with you on is making I don't want to make a statement on that Trump isn't arresting people illegally more, because I think they're purposely obfuscating those numbers. I was really interested in getting into that article. I was trying to look while you're talking.
So I'm not trying to suggest that he's not illegally arresting people. I'm just
at a higher rate than other presidents, because there are people I do trust, like what their research skills and stuff, claiming that he is.
Yeah, I think what you have to look at is like, okay, like you got to start looking at like percentages, right? Like, if you look at the number of people that are being arrested, I don't think that's going to be quite the numbers that you've been made or you've been led to believe. If you can pull up if you're able to find some statistics on that, I would love to hear what people think.
I didn't really want to do that in the middle of the show, but I would. It's hard to do. I know. Yeah.
But maybe on a break we could, if we can find
besides,
it.
I'm not joking. Like, whenever I've tried to just do a quick thing because people I know are like arguing about it or something, you can't find a quick answer, and that's when I get like distracted and go on to some other topic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, okay, so they he extradited like 300 people illegally to what was it, the ICE facility in Honduras? No, not Honduras. Where was it? It's
I don't know.
El Salvador, right?
Oh, okay.
So that's an example, right? Like, that was one of the big, extraditions, right, that he did, or I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway, he basically shipped a bunch of people off to El Salvador, right? In a prison in El Salvador. Well, the thing is that when I say that he hasn't probably done as much as you think, it's because this is all public relations, right? And that was a lot of people, but it wasn't a lot of people in the scheme of extraditions, right? That
just
occur.
Because, like you're saying, Biden might have been doing the same amount, but I'm just saying I don't think we know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. My point that I'm trying to make is that there's a lot of extraditions every year. Yeah. And so 300 people in terms of the number of extraditions that occur on a yearly basis is nothing, right?
But the number I've been hearing is not 300. The numbers I've been hearing is like hundreds of thousands of more cases like this than normal. And that's just what I'm hearing from people who are interested in it, looking into it, and I wasn't. And,
So,
and in fact, this
I don't
same
know,
person.
I don't know what 100,000 people is in the scheme of extraditions on like say a yearly basis or whatever. So I don't really have a good idea to compare. But
And that's basically exactly what I'm saying too.
Yeah,
I'm saying
yeah.
like I don't know that, so I'm not going to claim one way or the other.
Yeah, right. And I don't know for like I said before too, and I'm gonna repeat myself. I don't know for sure either. So this would be something that would be great to find out.
Yeah.
I just know that
the article I was missing.
a lot of the
on the next break.
A lot of what presidents do is theatrics. A lot of what politicians do is theatrics, and certainly a lot of what Trump has done has been theatrics. There's a lot of things that he did by edict, but once it hits the courts, those things have been turned out.
Like the other day,
right?
I actually thought that he actually made weed Schedule 4 instead of Schedule 1. Do you know what that means? So that would make it less restricted.
I understand the schedules. Yeah. So,
but he actually didn't. Like all he did was make a direct.
He made an announcement, but he didn't actually do it.
He made an executive order that told them to hurry up the process because apparently Biden already started the exact same process.
Was that a law that passed, and then?
What I was talking about just now,
Biden?
what Trump did was an executive order telling them, and I don't know what Biden did. Was it a law? I don't know. All I know is they're already in the process of they have to look into and then change it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 4, which would put it in the same range Ian told me as what is that called? It starts with it's when you go in the K hole. It's so it'd be in the same as steroid use.
Okay.
And also the K hole one, which I'm not remembering what that's called right now. And
I think I know what you're talking about.
I keep wanting to say Keppra, and that's just because I've been in the Gypsy Rose case. It's not Keppra. That's a seizure medicine.
This was something that was sold over the counter, basically, right? Up until recently.
I don't know how recently, but doctors can prescribe it right now. Ketamine.
Yeah. Wasn't ketamine sold openly without a prescription even?
Maybe before, like a long time ago, like maybe like before I was born or something. But
no. I meant like recently.
It's definitely been illegal since I was like a kid. But,
okay.
but I mean like
Maybe
Schedule 4, more like instead of like, oh, they're pulling cars over and looking for the smell of Keppra. Like
I wonder if it was legal
Schedule
at a
1.
state level and not at the and
Maybe
it
there
wasn't
was a
legal at the
state
federal
that did
level, but it wasn't as serious as some other substances.
And the other thing about it is you can go to a doctor and they can get you Keppra, but you like stay in the room with them and have a session with them. Like they don't just give it to you and you walk off.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like a therapy thing.
Yeah, so I know the different like
or I meant to say ketamine. I think I said Keppra again.
Schedule drugs has to do in part with whether or not they recognize it as having medical municipal value, basically. And so if it has some sort of medical value or medicinal
which is why it's
value.
insane that they say that about weed, because weed,
right,
there are lots of people that
right.
claim that it has medical value and lots of doctors that use it for medical value, but whereas like what doctor is giving you alcohol for medical value, for a medical reason?
I've not heard of that except for like historically, like
okay, maybe
like I mean they would get
like give the baby this to make the baby sleep and stuff like that.
I wasn't even thinking of that. I was thinking more like somebody got shot and they didn't have any kind of drugs, and alcohol was the only thing that would I had a couple of uses. One was I think to keep out bacteria and stuff, although I don't know how well or what point they knew that would occur or that would help. And then the other is for, you get really drunk, you don't know that they're sawing off your leg, right?
Oh, that's horrible.
In a battle, that kind of thing. So yeah, like during like the Civil War period, I think like they used it for that type of
I still think that like there's
medical use case.
Like for example with kratom, anytime I try to look up like an answer about kratom, it's really hard to find things because they just don't study it that much. But weed has been studied a lot and lots of good things have been like found. There have been lots of things that it helped with. I'm not even like a weed user. I'm not even like a big weed promoter. Like I wouldn't
right?
like tell somebody I think that's a good idea for them to smoke weed in most cases, and yet I still can admit that there are lots of studies that show, look, this did something good for.
Well, I mean,
case.
that's the libertarian mindset, right? Like I don't smoke weed either, and yet, yeah, I mean,
it shouldn't be illegal.
I don't think it should be illegal, right?
But in Trump's executive order thing he did, where he just basically ranted about that and kind of basically told the government like hurry it up and make it Schedule 4. He went off, and not he. I don't know if it's his own words. You know what I mean? But in the executive order, he goes off about how weed isn't that harmful, and it's kind of so weird to be saying that and making like a huge statement like that. It was really just a big statement, basically. and at the same time trying to start a war with Venezuela over other drugs.
Right, and another funny thing about that is that he's using that as an excuse to blow drug boats out of the water, right?
Yep.
Or supposed drug boats. It's like, wait a minute. Okay, so hold on. So weed is okay, but you're probably blowing drug boats out of the water with weed. Like, what sense does any of this make?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, yeah, murder. I mean, that's what you've done is you've murdered somebody. They haven't gotten a fair trial. You haven't, it's like, it's one thing to, once somebody hits U.S. shores, you can go after and arrest those people and, prosecute them, right? And that's the proper way of going about it. Because until they hit your shores, they haven't committed a crime.
I think they're going to sell weed to Americans. Or actually it wasn't weed. They've been claiming it's fentanyl and stuff, still.
And the thing is, it's just suspicion. There's no evidence, right?
It's
like, until they have... until they've actually seized the drugs, they don't know what it is. They just think it's that
so they're
because...
just blowing ships up. That's insane. Like, I've never heard of a president doing something like this.
No other president has, from what I understand.
And what really blows my mind is it being like Venezuela. You know what I mean? It's not... Like, the thing is, I'm not saying it makes it better if it's as Afghanistan, but I feel like presidents have probably done similar things in, like, Afghanistan, and we never hear about it because, it's in the middle of a war.
In Afghanistan, they had U.S. soldiers guarding the poppy fields. I mean...
Yeah, but I'm just saying, in some other country, but it really brings it close to home when it feels like you're starting a fight with one of our, like, close neighbors that could easily just, like, come and kill a bunch of Americans because they are mad about it. Like, if your child is killed on one of those drug boats, you may be more inclined to sneak over the border and do a terrorist attack. I'm not saying that, like, I think that is likely or something like that. It's just like, whenever it's happening in Afghanistan, there's still blowback in America. Like, we had 9/11, and yet Venezuela's way closer. Why are you picking a fight with people? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, blowback is a real... absolutely real thing.
And I think you could even extend that, and Afghanistan came after 9/11, but nonetheless, but there's a point that you made there that is completely valid in that one of the things that the United States has done over the decades is gone in with corporations and other Western values into countries where the population doesn't have those values and doesn't like us, and so you end up with these terrorists targeting Americans. It's like that was not 9/11 wasn't just we hate Americans. They had reasons to hate Americans.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it was justified. I'm just saying that.
Right. I don't either. Exactly. It's just that we know this is a phenomenon that happens. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up.
When New Hampshire peacefully leaves the Union, will we have to take on some of the national debt? Let's be clear. That's not national debt. That's federal debt. Debt that was incurred by a bunch of people that we didn't elect, forcing policies on us that we didn't want, and 2.5 million unelected federal bureaucrats. According to Professor Matt Quartrup from Coventry University and the foremost expert on independence referenda, the rule in international law is that political divorce is not like domestic divorce in that there is no alimony due and no obligation to pay the debt incurred by the larger organization. New Hampshire's government is a paragon of fiscal responsibility compared to the United States federal government. We didn't create the national debt. We didn't consent to it, and when we declare peaceful independence, New Hampshire will not owe a single solitary dime of federal debt. You can learn more about how we can peacefully divorce D.C. at NHindependence.org and join the movement at NHexit.us.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The United States launched airstrikes against ISIS in the north of Nigeria on Christmas Day. U.S. President Donald Trump said they were to send a message to insurgents in the country who he claims are persecuting Christians. FSN's Jagruti Dave has more from Washington.
Donald Trump has been threatening military intervention in Nigeria for some time, and this was the justification he gave for these strikes, which he described as deadly in a social media post. He said ISIS terrorist scum have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. He added, "Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues." US Africa Command said their initial assessment is that multiple ISIS terrorists were killed in ISIS camps. The strikes were coordinated with the Nigerian government, whose foreign minister said they shared intelligence with the US.
India and Bangladesh summoned each other's envoys over protests outside their diplomatic missions as already tense ties spiral. The latest round of formal protests come after right-wing groups staged protests in several Indian cities over the killing of a Hindu garment worker in Bangladesh over allegations of blasphemy. FSN's Kshitij Nagar has more from New Delhi.
The summoning of the Indian High Commissioner by Bangladesh is the second such instance in as many days. Bangladeshi officials raised objections over protests and what they describe as a failure to curb demonstrations and targeting its diplomatic missions. The High Commission in Delhi remains under heavy police deployment, with security tightened and police forces deployed. The killing of a Hindu man in northern Bangladesh earlier in the month triggered public anger in India and sharpened concerns over minority safety. Indian authorities say they are closely tracking developments. The escalation comes amid broader political uncertainty in Bangladesh following the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina earlier this year.
U.S. President Trump announced a new type of battleship set to be used by the U.S. Navy, and it is one named after himself. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
Standing beside the Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State, Donald Trump announced that the US will build 2 new Trump-class battleships. Mr. Trump told reporters on Monday he is calling them the Golden Fleet and said eventually there'll be 25 of them. Mr. Trump said the new ships will have 100 times the force and power of any other battleship ever built, adding there will be nothing else like them. The president said that the US has not built a battleship since 1994 and said each one will be the largest in the history of the world. He said they will command respect, but added that the world already respects America.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. You can call 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I'd like to thank KC for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that KC went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Casey and everyone who supports us. And again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. And thank you to Casey and everyone who supports us. With you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie,
Angelo, and Mr. Penguin.
And I did find the article in the last segment I was talking about, and it's not that I'm like trying to disprove what you're saying, Penguin. It's just simply that like we both were wondering, because this is exactly the normal pattern of presidents. Like he's the only one that started. He is a new, he's a Republican, whereas the last one was a Democrat, and so he starts talking about we're going to be doing this, and everybody thinks that it's new, starting with that president. Sure. In reality, the government's been doing it. So it is true that the government, like Biden, was arresting people with ICE and deporting people, and just wouldn't talk about it.
A lot of the really tragic kind of things that these politicians have done. The president basically has occurred under multiple different administrations. And as an example, one of the things was separating kids from their parents, right? In ICE detention facilities. Okay. Yep. That happened and Biden was doing under both, right. Under both Democrat and Republican administrations. But that's the kind of thing that, people often will, say it's Trump. Trump is, somehow at fault, when it's like, well, no, that's not exactly. It's kind of a misleading people, right? Because it happened under different administrations on both sides, political sides, basically.
Okay, yes, I agree. But I did want to know, is it growing or not? So I found this article from MSN. 4 ICE detainee deaths in 4 days spark alarm as arrests grow.
But you're talking about the death toll, not the number of immigrants extradited.
Well, it also references arrests growing, so I want to get into it. I haven't read this.
Okay.
So, it says 4 people in immigration detention have died over a 4-day period this month, increasing concern among advocates and some members of Congress over detention conditions. 1 death took place December 12th, another 2 took place on December 14th, and the 4th on December 15th, according to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement news releases. 4 detainee deaths in 1 week is a red-hot crisis. Why are people dying? This is insane. Why are people who are being arrested dying in custody? Like, I don't even hear about just, like criminals dying in jail that often. You know what I mean?
Bonnie,
like just
part of the
right when they get
reason
arrested?
is simply because of the number of detainees. And
What is that number?
I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but if you look up the number of detainees, you're going to find that there's a lot of people in detention.
Even then, it's like how often.
And so you're going to have, deaths. But the question is, are they the result of the conditions? And the conditions have always been bad in the prison systems. I mean, even in the federal prison system, when it comes to U.S. citizens, the detention facilities are in terrible shape. We know that because of Aria and Ian.
Yeah, but Ian and Aria
others.
didn't experience something that's like, oh, you'll die
facilities?
about this. You know what I mean?
So some of the people that we know have experienced those types of conditions, I do believe. Like for example, not at the federal level here, but at least at the state level. For example, in Manchester, the prison conditions there are really, really, really terrible. You don't want to be arrested.
I've heard that about
Manchester.
The one in Manchester. I forget what it's called. Do you remember what that one's called? It's like Main Street is what I want to say. It's not Main Street. It's something Street. Valley Street.
Yeah, Valley Street.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really bad. Yeah. I haven't necessarily heard that somebody died there, but
people have
heard
died.
It's really bad. Yeah.
They find all the time
but even then it's like
rat poison in people's foods, and
oh my god,
yeah, people are murdered. So
like
anyway,
by other detainees or something.
It doesn't get investigated, or it doesn't get investigated properly, or they don't have enough evidence to determine who was, the killer, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that like the conditions are bad, right? So, and this is the same thing at the federal level. Now it may be that the conditions are even worse at some of these detention centers, right, for immigrants. There's a variety of conditions at different prisons across the United States at the federal level. So the conditions were never good, right? So if it's worse under Trump, that very well could be. They could be crowding more people into these detention facilities, making the situation even worse. And this could result in, an increasing number of deaths. Mm-hmm. So
I want to know but that also kind of begs more questions, because I want to know, well, is it because, is it kind of normal considering we're doing like 4 times as many arrests or not? So,
well, here, I have another statistic that is worth mentioning here. So we were asking before, what is what's the level of extradition that's occurring in the United States now versus prior to Trump? Mm-hmm. So in 2022, there were 109,000 extradition immigrants extradited. Okay. In 2024, it was something around 700,000.
Wow.
So it clearly has significantly increased under the most recent Trump administration.
Yep.
But one of the other things to keep in mind is that like there's only so much money going into these extraditions and in law enforcement and that kind of thing at that level. So like they can increase the number of extraditions, but they are limited by their resources still. But they can do things like cut corners and result in more people dying, for example, to sort of push those numbers up, and that's probably what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how many you'd have to increase the resources by 7 if you want to extradite, right? But has the funding gone up by 7-fold?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the funding because they want to pay the
7-fold.
ICE agents, but not necessarily like, oh, they're making 7 times more room in the prisons or whatever.
If you look at the budgets, I am sure that has not gone up by 7-fold. There's and remember that not only does it doesn't need to go up by 7-fold, it needs to go up by even more than that, because if you look at inflation, I mean, everything's more than doubled in the last handful of years. So it's not double. It's not a matter of sevenfold. It's more like 15-fold or maybe even more than that potentially would need to be funded in order to just keep up with the level and the conditions that we had in 2022, or maybe a little before that even.
This article back on MSN.com, it says this man, Eunice Cho, senior counsel at the American Civil Liberties Union National Prison Project. So that means ACLU, right? So that ACLU's National Prison Project. Okay. There is no question in my mind that this represents a clear deterioration of medical care and the worsening conditions in ICE detention. The recent deaths bring total detainee deaths to 30 in 2025, the highest number since 2004, when 32 people died in ICE custody. This year's, I wonder what was going on then.
That actually
George
doesn't
Bush?
sound that bad, especially relative to the number of people that they're incarcerating. So
yeah, but think about in 2004, it was probably many less. I don't know actually, because
but what I'm trying to say is the percentage of people, right? So if you have,
that would make it a higher percentage in 2004.
You should have a higher percentage if you have a higher number of detainees, right? So if you have a 700,000 versus 100,000, you would expect there to be a sevenfold increase in the number of deaths, and that's not necessarily because of worsening conditions.
Yeah, but we don't know that yet, so I want to look it up. It's kind of crazy. So I guess in 2004, more people were detained than 2002 that you read earlier. It says.
Okay.
2022, not 2002.
Oh, 2002, yeah. But this is also confusing me. It says approximately 235,247 foreign nationals. Yeah, in 2004. But what did your thing also specify foreign nationals? Because I don't know if that's everyone detained by ICE.
My understanding is that was the numbers for extradition of illegal immigrants, basically.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to give me this answer for, but it's also AI, and it feels weird that it's saying, specifically foreign nationals. And it's like, do you have to be a foreign national? Because honestly, the word foreign national is this wishy-washy term, and it's like, you could move to America, say, don't like Somalia anymore at all, and I don't want to, I'm not Somalian, I'm American, and they'll still call you a foreign national on the news because they're like, they want everyone out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, basically anytime extradition comes into effect, so anybody overstaying a visa would also count, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're extradited though. So
I'm wondering if the number is bigger to not include foreign nationals, but I guess I'd be wrong.
Well, I mean, so it was the case in particular that, people would overstay their visas a bit and then leave voluntarily. But this tends to be, not so much immigrants. That's more of tourism kind of thing.
What is this talking about now? Now I'm starting to think this is like AI weirdness, and I should just move on because it says context. This was part of a broader enforcement effort where DHS apprehended over 1.2 million foreign nationals in 2004, with 92% from Mexico. So is that the same thing as what ICE is doing?
No, detention does not necessarily mean extradition, right? So somebody could be detained, released, and not be extradited.
Yeah, but I didn't know we were looking up specifically only numbers of being extradited, because these people are just dying in ICE detention, not necessarily after being extradited.
Right. So you're right. I mean, you're right. We did look up extradition, not detentions. And it's kind of a complicated thing to think about, because
and also they muddy the waters. I swear. This is the hardest thing I've ever tried to Google, because some of my people I know were actually arguing about these numbers.
Yep.
And as I try to start Googling, they don't make it easy. You know what I mean?
No. They don't. But there's also some other factors here too that they're probably playing into this. So, for example, the numbers. Well, maybe not the extradition number, but for example, the number of detainees. You can do sevenfold increase in detainees and not necessarily reduce the conditions if you're not holding on to people as long.
Yeah, if you're detained for a day. Yeah,
right. So right, exactly. So if somebody in 2004 was detained for 25 days, for example, on average, but they're only detaining people for 2 days on average, in 2024, then the conditions, the prison conditions, they don't have to spend more money basically on those prison conditions.
Well, I will say that this here gives
facilities.
us at least a little bit of an answer. It says nearly 66,000 people are currently in detention according to ICE data, which is a record high. So that's a record high of people all being in detention at once. And it says the Trump administration is seeking to spend $45 billion to expand immigration detention after receiving an infusion of cash from Congress. So I guess they recently got more money from Congress to do more of this, I guess. The rise in detention
I'm talking
deaths,
about waste of your tax, your tax money, right?
just holding these people and stuff, especially since we have government people who don't want to have to show their faces, grabbing people off the streets that we don't know. Like, let's just say there are some people that absolutely are here, and I don't mean just illegally, they crossed the border, and I care about that law. Like, they came here and they got brought here by some NGO and don't have a job and are living off welfare. Say you want only those people taken off, well, you're still paying this ICE agent to arrest a bunch of people that maybe it's even someone they don't like or something like that, and never have any accountability, and it turns out that person was not illegal. It happens all the time. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a huge waste. No, even if you are into this.
I'm following what you're saying. So you're talking about all of the arrests that have been occurring in relation to people who were simply foreigners, or they might have even been born here in some cases and have U.S. citizenship.
You have to pay for that, and then it finds,
right.
We found out, sorry, and they release them. It's like you have to pay for that.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Because the government does everything
there's detention,
wrong.
and maybe somebody doesn't have ID on them, or maybe they do have ID on them, but they still detain them for some period of time.
There've been these really weird cases too, where people are completely legal, even though they're from another place, but they are legally here, and they have like one minor arrest for like somebody that it happened in New Hampshire, I think it was. Maybe it was the Connecticut airport.
Canada, I think it was. So they like extradited somebody to Canada recently who had been here for like 20-something years.
I don't know. That could be a different one. Because what I'm thinking of, he didn't get sent to Canada. He was being held, and he's being
wouldn't be allowed back into the United States, right?
He was from New Hampshire, but he was using the Connecticut airport, and he got detained there. And I don't think he actually got sent away anywhere. They were holding him, and the only reason that they brought up was something about him having a weed case that was dismissed from like 10 years earlier. Yeah, and he was from Germany. Or something like that.
Okay, that's a different case. I know there was a case in somebody, like 20, they were here in the United States for 20-something plus years with a family and everything. They were illegal. They had a green card or something of that nature. I
think they had permanent residence status.
Permanent residence status, sorry. And then they were, they went back to Canada, and when they tried to get back in the United States, they were, I think, denied.
I see.
And it had to do with something that, some arrest from like ages ago, and it's like, well, they had every opportunity to deny the residence, the permanent residence status or the green card, in that time period, because those kind of things have to be renewed every so often.
And it is also minor marijuana related convictions in 2004 and 2007. It's really similar to the other guy I was telling you about.
Yeah. I mean,
and I find that like the most odd ones and the most ridiculous ones. Like, you're paying for people to, this guy Christopher didn't get put in ICE custody, but this is the type of thing that they are doing. Like I said, the guy from the German in Connecticut, they're
basically just using any excuse to extradite.
This guy that you guys were talking about, Christopher Landry, the New Hampshire permanent resident who was a green card holder who got denied reentry from Canada in July 2005. It says that he was living here since age 5.
You said that was in 2005?
No.
Or 2025?
Oh, yeah. Did I say 2005 again?
Yeah.
No, it was July 2025, the exact one you guys were talking about.
That's the kind of thing that's extraordinarily messed up, that the United States will extradite somebody who was here as a child, and now as an adult they're going to extradite them to some country where they don't even speak the language. Like, that's
Canada. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean,
I know.
Okay, that's not the case with Canada.
I guess it could be if they were in the French part, but
well, no, I mean.
No, it could be.
I see what you're saying. Maybe,
right on
maybe.
there.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's like it's like some really messed up stuff. Like, even if you can just somehow justify like extraditing like maybe their parents or something like that, or how do you justify extraditing somebody as an adult, who literally has grown up here? I mean, like that, you would think, the whole you were born here, you're a citizen. Well, why not, if you've been here as a child for more than a couple of years, why are you not also granted citizenship status, right? Like, you should be, I think, anyway. I mean, I don't even think we should have citizenships at all to begin with, but to the degree that we do,
It makes sense that what's the difference between being born here and being literally like 5 or less when you got here? like, what's the big difference, actually? You know what I mean? It's like kind of arbitrary. Well, you didn't come out of your mother's womb,
right? Like
here.
Like you lived here for a long time as a kid, and you speak the English language. You went to the American schools. How are you not then? How do you not then have citizenship, right? Like, okay, fine. Maybe you can say, as somebody, as an adult who illegally immigrated here. But that's not what's going on with these minors who have been here that are now adults that they're extraditing.
Well, I don't have much else to say about the ICE stuff right now. We got a bunch of questions and we wanted to answer them, and I'm really glad I found that article. And I don't know how much the rest of this will really be worth reading, so I'm not going to. It was just like all these people making their statements, like ICE is saying, oh, this is... actually, we're doing really well. We investigators often, and we're doing really well. They're saying in custody deaths this past year averaged less than 1%, the lowest in ICE history.
Oh, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So the death rate hasn't gone up.
The rate. I don't think anyone was claiming that the rate went up. In fact, I only wanted to read this more because I wanted to know if the amount of arrests has gone up.
That's exactly the point that I was making before about, people are manipulating things that Trump has done. And look, I don't like Trump, right? But that doesn't mean we should be manipulating the facts in order to sway opinion in a way that's deceptive. And that's what you're doing when you're saying, well, deaths have increased under Trump. Immigration deaths in ICE facilities have increased under Trump. Well, yeah, but what is it? What is that as a percentage, right? Because if you're detaining more people and those deaths are all natural deaths, or they're the same.
Yeah, like we didn't even get any info about these 4 deaths. That's what kind of bothers me.
Right, and that's the thing. Like I don't like Trump. I don't think we should be detaining these people at all. I don't.
Yes, we do later in the article, but we didn't so far in the article. Right. It's like they didn't start with it.
No,
it's
of course not.
Later on in the article,
the titles are always the titles and the introductory are always the most manipulative.
It says the 4 detainees who recently died were John. I'm not going to read their names. I'm sorry, because somebody from a Haitian immigrant, a Bulgarian immigrant, and a Nicaraguan detainee, and somebody from Eritrea. Is that how you say it?
Eritrea.
Well, anyways, it says that I said 2 of the men died of natural causes, while the other 2 had medical complications. So 2 of them died of like old age or something.
Yeah, I mean we don't necessarily
detainee.
know the medical complications. That could have been caused.
And ICE gets to tell us,
Yeah, right. This is the other problem that we have. Like
medical complications for the rat poison in their food, or
right. Everything the government says to you is manipulative, or most of it anyway is very manipulative. You really can't trust and unfortunately you can't trust the news either, because most of the news that you read are like government press releases, basically. That have just been rewritten by a reporter, right?
And also you could say like, we're listening to the government about a medical thing, and I never like that, because it's like the government can't just by fiat declare that somebody died of natural causes. It's like, let's say he died in his sleep. How does the government know he didn't die of the increased stress of being arrested? You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's just natural and it would have happened no matter what, even if we didn't arrest him. We don't know that. You're not a scientist.
So you can die from complications, whether you're inside a prison or outside of a prison. So it doesn't, that doesn't really tell us, whether or not the reason that you died from those complications was because they withheld proper medical care,
right.
Or if they withheld proper medical care and you died of complications as a result of that, well, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
But it could be also that they didn't withhold medical care and they died of medical complications because it's
And it says several of the deaths that occurred this year occurred within days of people being taken into ICE. So if that's just natural, that is a huge coincidence, right? But
yeah, I mean, it's also that is another concern. That's like, we're detaining people who have medical conditions and then not providing proper care. It's like you shouldn't be arresting people who are about to go into surgery or about to go, or in the process of going to the hospital, right? Like, I mean, there's something morally wrong about that.
Well, I just found another thing with something morally wrong. It says this is Assistant Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. She says there have been no spikes in deaths. As bed space has been expanded, we have maintained higher standard of care than most prisons that hold U.S. citizens, including providing access to proper medical care. Why are you bragging about that? We shouldn't be having prisons in the United States with American citizens with lower standards of care either, than the ones people are dying in. This is crazy. Just out and admitting that as a way to defend yourself somehow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I want to use the word diverse. That's not probably quite the right word I'm looking for, but
cognitive dissonance.
No. Like there's a wide variety of conditions when it comes to prison facilities in the United States.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can go to a really nice one, or comparatively.
Yeah. I mean, there's like resort prisons if you're willing to pay for it, even. But at the same time, there's also better prisons, conditions and worse prison conditions depending on where.
Yeah, it's like we brought up the Valley Street thing in New Hampshire. It's like a known thing to all New Hampshire people that if you go to jail, just go anywhere but Valley Street. Don't get arrested where you're going to go to Valley Street.
And Keene actually is a great place to do activism, we've always said, because Keene has Cheshire prison.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
The Cheshire jail.
I don't know.
And Valley Street is a jail, by the way, not a prison. But anyway.
I accidentally mixed those words.
Anyway, a prison is like if you're there for more than a year. If they hold people for more than a year, basically you're in a prison. But if it's less than a year, then it's in a jail. But technically, they have people that are in jail for more than a year too. But it's like usually awaiting detention or awaiting sentencing, that kind of thing.
It's called the Cheshire County Department of Corrections.
Yeah. Well, we call it the Cheshire Spiritual Retreat.
Yeah.
And the one of the things about it is the conditions are actually decent, relatively speaking. Obviously you still don't want to be there, but they're relatively conditioned by comparison to some place like Manchester with Valley Street. The jail there is
and like being in the underground places under New York City sounds absolutely horrifying, where people get forgotten and stuff.
Yeah, New York has some really bad prisons. I don't know if there's any decent prisons in New York, but or acceptable prison conditions, but there's definitely some really bad ones I am aware of.
I don't know. Out west, there's some prisons that's just a ranch in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
I have heard of this. And they just send people out to work like cattle and build fences, and you can't run away because you'll just die.
The one Alice Johnson was in Alabama was a similar thing. It's like a camp where you work at it. Well, 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. And you work as a slave.
Yeah, you're
because
literally
slavery
a slave.
is legal
Slavery
in the
is
US.
not illegal in the United States.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The United States launched airstrikes against ISIS in the north of Nigeria on Christmas Day. U.S. President Donald Trump said they were to send a message to insurgents in the country who he claims are persecuting Christians. FSN's Jagruti Dave has more from Washington.
Donald Trump has been threatening military intervention in Nigeria for some time, and this was the justification he gave for these strikes, which he described as deadly in a social media post. He said ISIS terrorist scum have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. He added, "Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues." US Africa Command said their initial assessment is that multiple ISIS terrorists were killed in ISIS camps. The strikes were coordinated with the Nigerian government, whose foreign minister said they shared intelligence with the US.
India and Bangladesh summoned each other's envoys over protests outside their diplomatic missions as already tense ties spiral. The latest round of formal protests come after right-wing groups staged protests in several Indian cities over the killing of a Hindu garment worker in Bangladesh over allegations of blasphemy. FSN's Kshitij Nagar has more from New Delhi.
The summoning of the Indian High Commissioner by Bangladesh is the second such instance in as many days. Bangladeshi officials raised objections over protests and what they describe as a failure to curb demonstrations and targeting its diplomatic missions. The High Commission in Delhi remains under heavy police deployment, with security tightened and police forces deployed. The killing of a Hindu man in northern Bangladesh earlier in the month triggered public anger in India and sharpened concerns over minority safety. Indian authorities say they are closely tracking developments. The escalation comes amid broader political uncertainty in Bangladesh following the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina earlier this year.
U.S. President Trump announced a new type of battleship set to be used by the U.S. Navy, and it is one named after himself. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
Standing beside the Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State, Donald Trump announced that the US will build 2 new Trump-class battleships. Mr. Trump told reporters on Monday he is calling them the Golden Fleet and said eventually there'll be 25 of them. Mr. Trump said the new ships will have 100 times the force and power of any other battleship ever built, adding there will be nothing else like them. The president said that the US has not built a battleship since 1994 and said each one will be the largest in the history of the world. He said they will command respect, but added that the world already respects America. Mitch McCann, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN. The U.S. confirmed it carried out a strike on an alleged drug smuggling boat, killing one person. Along with the seizure of another Venezuelan oil tanker over the weekend, it continues the pressure campaign against Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The US military confirming that it had killed what it called one narco-terrorist. It released footage of that strike, with the US Southern Command confirming on X that it had carried out the attack upon the direction of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. It said the boat had been transiting along known narco-trafficking routes. But all of this as Venezuela has called for an urgent meeting at the UN Security Council to push back on what it's called the aggression of the United States. China and Russia both coming out with strong support for Caracas, with China saying that the US was in serious violation of international law with its continued actions against Venezuela, its oil tankers and alleged drug smuggling boats. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A car bomb killed a top military official in Moscow. FSN's Daria Bondarchuk reports from the Russian capital.
A car bomb exploded in southern Moscow on Monday, killing General Fanil Sarvarov. He headed the Operational Training Directorate of the Russian Army's General Staff. The top military official was blown up in the parking lot of his apartment building, reportedly minutes after he sat in his car and traveled just a few meters. He became the third person of his rank to be killed in car bombing incidents over the past 12 months. Russia's investigative committee says Lieutenant General Sarvarov was killed in an explosion possibly orchestrated by Ukrainian intelligence services. Daria Bondarchuk, Moscow.
That was a look at some of the week's top stories. Ira Spitzer reporting.
After decades of searching the cosmos, today NASA announced that what it was really looking for was right here on planet Earth all along.
For years, we've foolishly chased after comets, moons, and stars. Outer space may be beautiful, but it's not as beautiful as the smile of a child, nor as sublime as a good bottle of wine shared among friends. Our search ends where it began, here on this big blue marble.
Astronomers say that while their telescopes were pointing at Mars, they never even noticed the planet that was right in front of them. NASA now plans to appreciate what they already have. The agency's latest report, entitled Wonder is Everywhere, Finding the Beauty in the Everyday, calls for further study of the little things that truly give life meaning.
Warm rain on a summer day. The smell of pine trees touching the worn paper of your favorite book. That's what's always made us happy. Not some asteroid a million miles away.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And to get in on the air with us, 603-283-6160. And you can bring up whatever's on your mind. Just recently, I was listening to a video where somebody talked about a call to Coast to Coast. It was a YouTube video about this call to Coast back when Art Bell was in charge of it, and how there's conspiracy theories that it's what got him taken off the air. It's like got him taken out. And I left a comment. I was like, oh, if people, because the guy in the article or in the video was like, oh, I just miss radio like this. And I was like, radio like this exists. You can call into Free Talk Live about anything. I mean, you can still call into Coast to Coast, but I don't even know. I don't know the specifics about Coast to Coast. Like if they'll just let anyone on is what I'm saying. Like,
oh, if there's not like
you?
a screener, I don't know. I don't even know. That's like.
Or if he just does interviews, like every time I've listened to Coast, because it's still a thing. Like I've listened to Coast on and off every once in a while. Never like as much as I listen to Free Talk Live, but it was always like a person that was on to talk about it, like not just calls. Like the Art Bell thing was just like people calling in, and that was so fun and cool. Like I didn't watch that was obviously before my time too. I'm pretty sure that he was like the 90s or maybe like early 2000s when Art Bell stopped being on, but I mean I was alive, but I wasn't listening to.
Yeah, I wasn't listening to talk radio back then.
Yeah, but with you on the on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie,
Angelo,
and Mr. Penguin.
And Mr. Penguin, you brought in an article that's going to have a lot of words in the title. We should probably explain to people. The Supreme Court is debating whether ISP providers or internet service providers can kick people off for piracy.
Yeah, and this isn't the piracy like on the high seas.
Yeah.
There's no actual deprivation of anything going on in these cases. They're talking about downloading music, movies, that kind of thing from the internet from a source where basically a copyright holder isn't getting a cut. So basically this is a huge case. It involves liability for ISPs, internet service providers, and whether or not they have to, kick you off the internet if they're informed that you might be pirating, doing some sort of piracy. Now, this is based on mere accusation, not some sort of evidence or a court. So it would be one thing if it was a court saying, okay, you've been convicted of this. Now the internet service provider has to kick you off. Nope. all that has to happen is somebody has to make an accusation against you.
Like a neighbor can make an accusation against you?
I mean, generally it's going to be some sort of copyright holder that have to make an accusation against you. But yeah, a neighbor could potentially do it too. I mean, all it requires is somebody to basically email your ISP with your IP address and make a claim that you pirated something. And what does the ISP know? The ISP doesn't know what you're doing with your I mean, they could maybe they could look into it, but the point is that if you're not currently pirating something, the ISP isn't necessarily going to know what you did yesterday, right? So they can't even evaluate whether or not the claim, is valid or invalid, right?
Oh.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, I would have thought that they have that all like documented and everything, like everything you do.
No, all they're going to get is a accusation, and it might say, something was being shared with such and such application on this port on this date. But if that's not actually ongoing, the ISP can't verify it, right? It's just an accusation. Now, if you're still doing it, maybe they can verify it. But if you're not still doing it, they can't verify that. And it's not necessarily the case that they can verify it anyway, because that means they also have to have some sort of application to be able to verify it, right? It's not like there's thousands of different types of applications and protocols out there on the internet. It's unreasonable to expect that an internet service provider has every single type of program and application where they're going to be able to go and check to see whether or not, even if you were still going and still doing it, right? Still pirating something. Anyway, so this is the title of the story. Supreme Court. So I actually swapped out one story for another. This one's from Torrent Freak because the other one was even longer.
Of the U.S. though, right?
This is the U.S. Supreme Court. Yeah. Okay. Supreme Court. Can ISPs be liable for piracy by doing nothing? So here goes. Can an ISP be held liable for piracy simply by doing nothing? Yesterday, the Supreme Court addressed this billion-dollar question. So basically, Cox is an ISP that was sued and held and convicted basically at multiple levels on appeal. Basically, they were convicted and eventually it's hit the Supreme Court now. And they're saying we knew that people were pirating on our network, but we didn't know about any specific instance. Mm-hmm. And so that's basically the question. While record labels argued that Cox turned a blind eye to habitual abusers, the ISP warned that expanding liability without proof of an active intent would turn internet providers into internet police. Not only internet police, but what's the phrasing?
Thought criminals, like
both judge and jury, and like prosecutor and
Judge Dredd.
No, yeah, but it's like judge.
It's like it's not even that. It's the police.
Judge.
It's like a police officer. It's like law enforcement, a judge, prosecutor, all in one.
And a jury.
And jury, yeah. All in one.
Basically, the idea is like, oh, you're making us have to enforce
like
this
a keeper
ourselves.
Of the peace, almost.
And it's actually not even that. It's going beyond that, because they don't even get to the ISP doesn't even get to decide, because if they decide to not kick you off and there's an accusation,
then they'll get in trouble.
Then they're going to get in trouble, and then there's going to be billions of dollars that they're held liable for.
That's basically like the whole idea where people were becoming enforcers of the state during COVID by being their stores were kicking people out, and they were saying like in some cases, I think in some states they literally would have gotten in trouble if they weren't kicking people out.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say that's similar, but it's like it's messed up, sure.
Yeah. It's
so
like
in
making
that sense,
you have to enforce the government's rules, and if you don't, you get in trouble.
Yeah, but it's like it's even way worse than that, because there's no
evidence.
There's no evidence. There's no jury. There's no judge. To decide. There's no independent body to decide. Did you or did you not do what this third party is accusing your customer of? And if you decide not to kick them off.
Oh, it's judge, jury, and executioner.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, I knew there was like some word we were missing. Yeah. That's
we were
saying, meaning like, oh, you're telling us to.
Yeah, but again, this is more than just judge, jury, and executioner. It's judge, jury, executioner, and law enforcement.
Yeah.
Because they basically want you to arrest them and then judge them and execute them. Yeah. But there's no judging here going on, really, if you think about it, because they just want the arrest part and the execution. They don't want any kind of trial, because then
or proof of anything.
Right. All right. Police and threaten essential access for. Okay, so let me back up a second here. let's see here. While record labels argue that the Cox turned a blind eye to habitual abusers, the ISP warned that extending liability without proof of active intent, would turn internet providers into internet police and threaten essential access for hospitals, schools, or even entire towns. It's actually even worse than this because there's only 7 or so companies that provide internet access in the United States. They're what are called backbone providers. Every other ISP more or less connects to one of these 7 companies in order for your internet to travel through, right? To get from one destination to the other. So if they're forced to comply with this rule, they're basically cutting off companies like Comcast and Cox and AT&T. Well, actually, AT&T is one of the backbone providers. But the point that I'm making is that your ISP is literally going to get cut off from the internet because one of their customers is pirating
like a
something.
customer that's not even you.
Right. It's a downstream customer, right? So it's absolutely crazy, but that's basically what the entertainment cartel are demanding.
There's so much info in this article. I'm kind of probably missing a few things. So where with this case, where are we at? It's like somebody sued maybe a record label or something sued an ISP, and now they're in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is actually considering it now?
So the entertainment cartel, so the copyright industry, Hollywood, has basically been going around suing ISPs.
Mm-hmm.
Cox is one of the early ones that got sued. And they got found guilty at a trial level, at a district court level. They appealed it. The appeal court, found Cox to basically... They upheld the lower court ruling, basically.
So they were guilty still.
Yeah. It's now been appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Okay.
It's something along those lines. Maybe there's other courts or something in there that I'm not thinking of, or I'm not using the right name for the particular court. But yeah. For the layman, I think they understand what I'm saying. All right. The Supreme Court case between several major record labels and internet provider Cox. So basically they teamed up. They what's the word? They cartelled. They cartelled up in order to go after Cox Communication. Okay, let's see. Here's one of the landmark battles of this decade. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think this is a landmark battle of this decade. I think this is more like a landmark battle of the century here. I mean, this is huge. I mean, think about it. If your kid pirates somebody, or your friend's kid connects to your internet and they pirate something, now you get kicked off the internet. Your whole household gets kicked off the internet. Mm-hmm. Your whole school gets kicked off the internet. All because one person. Yeah, your business gets kicked off the internet. I mean, if this goes into effect,
how did any court uphold this?
That's never going to be able to connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot anywhere ever again. Because think about it. That business, if you do something that's piracy and they get accused of piracy, that means that they lose their internet connection. It's not just that they can't provide internet service to their customers anymore. They lose their internet connection, meaning they can't do business anymore. Orders and stuff, right? Like how do you operate without the internet as a business these days? You can't. So it basically ensures that you will not be able to connect to any kind of Wi-Fi hotspot anywhere. Unless you're maybe paying for it, basically, some sort of payment is going to somebody for it. And even then, you're not going to be able to do it. Even then, you're not going to be able to do it because
you're going to be restricted as heck too.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're an ISP, and even if you are an ISP, you're going to have to lock down. Not only are you as an ISP, you're going to have to lock down the internet to such a degree that you can't do anything. You can't torrent files. Torrenting, people think that torrenting is only for piracy, but that's not true. There's all sorts of torrenting that's going on for games, update like game updates, that kind of thing, where gigabyte, I don't know about terabytes, but maybe gigabytes and gigabytes of data.
Not illegal, right?
Right, not illegal, completely legal. So the updates, the security updates for your games, or the game updates that you get, those are all using some sort of torrent type technology. That's going to be blocked. All of this stuff is going to be blocked. It's basically going to make the internet unusable at that point, because short of some sort of whitelist of websites, and think about it, in theory you can't even allow somebody to go on YouTube, because YouTube has content that's illegal, and if you download something from YouTube that's illegal and somebody somehow sends a DMCA, then you'd have to kick off your customer from the internet, basically.
I googled some legitimate uses for torrents, and it says some large scale companies use BitTorrent as part of their DevOps, development operations, to quickly deploy new code to a cluster of servers. Any large files, it can be used, downloaded that way. And it says an example. Well, this one has an example. It says, some Linux distributions offer BitTorrent downloads to save on bandwidth, and game companies like Blizzard use it to distribute the game client or patches for their games. BitTorrent is used for anybody or any company trying to distribute large files. Okay.
Yep, that's basically the sum of it. My company uses torrents, all the time. I mean, we use both it from a customer. Our customers use it from that perspective, and we use it from that perspective to download ISOs, which are basically it's installation media basically for operating systems. So my company, we ship computers, and we have to get those operating systems somehow. And in order to download them, well, the best way to do it is using a torrent. So we use a torrent, and this is all legal. This isn't illegal. This isn't piracy. But basically, the courts would, by making this ruling, say, well, ISPs can't allow torrents because torrents can be used for piracy. Therefore, either you kick them off, or again, like this all goes back to the big 7 backbone ISP providers. They're going to have to kick off, the big ISPs like Comcast and Cox and all of these companies that rely on them because they are customers of the backbone providers, and so. This literally does not work. There's no way that you can possibly, no matter how much you lock it down, there's no way you can make this work from a technical perspective.
How did it get this far? How did it get to the Supreme Court?
I was going to be like, how are these lower courts upholding these decisions?
It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, a lot of this comes down to bullying, I think is what it ultimately comes down to.
Cartel behavior?
Yeah, cartel behavior, bullying, and at the end of the day, it basically is going to empower copyright cartels or the entertainment cartel to basically kick anybody they want off the internet anytime they want. That's basically what's going to happen. And presumably the ISPs are going to have to comply, because if they don't, well, their business gets shut down because the ISP will get sued into the ground. So I mean, it's like. Yeah, I mean, even if it doesn't get as draconian as it would, the ruling itself is, it's going to have a massive impact, on everybody basically. And it's not. This isn't the only example of bullying that goes on. The state governments basically teamed up, and they passed these laws on tax collection basically, and the U.S. Supreme Court they overturned a prior ruling actually that said that businesses that are not in your state, they basically don't normally have to collect sales tax, or they didn't. It was a catalog back in the days of catalogs, but now any business, it doesn't matter where the business is located in the United States, they have to collect sales tax for 10,000 plus different taxing jurisdictions. Now that's not actually technically possible, because the taxes are based on the shipping address basically, but there's 10,000 different taxing jurisdictions. There's no database of addresses that align with what taxing jurisdiction any given address is in. So you're literally, every company on the internet today is literally violating the law as it is written and decided basically by the courts. Yeah. And now, we could say, oh, the internet or the whole internet is going to collapse because of it. But what actually happens is that the states now have this huge amount of power to basically bully companies to do what they want.
Yeah, and enforce it selectively or something?
Yeah, selective enforcement, exactly.
And when did that become law?
The Supreme Court it's really weird because the Supreme Court overruled a prior precedent. So it became a law when that prior precedent was overturned, but the laws themselves don't align with the precedent, because the law prior to that the federal law prior to that was that states don't, if you don't operate in a state, you don't have to collect sales taxes. So states have laws for sales taxes that say if you collect sales taxes, you have to have an address in the state. Mm-hmm. Well, that means that you're going to have 50 different states you're going to have to set up a business in order to collect sales tax for, well, it's not quite 50 states because not all of them have sales tax, but you get what I'm saying. Basically, you're going to have
in order to have a customer from any state, you have to have a address there?
Yeah. So in order for me to collect sales tax for a good that I ship to California, California law says I have to set up a business in California before I can collect sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
But then aren't you subject to California tax code at that point for your business? So you're gonna have to pay.
Well, the Supreme Court made you liable simply because you shipped to somebody in California.
Yeah, I get that, but it's saying like you have to open a business there to collect the sales tax. Wouldn't that make you also burdened to the other business taxes in California?
Yeah. Theoretically,
so
right?
that would just bankrupt you overnight. You have to open 50 new.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Like, there's all these laws that don't make any sense. That they don't work. Nothing. But we don't. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that we didn't see the internet retailers go out of business. What we saw was basically every single retailer charging some arbitrary amount of tax that isn't accurate relative to what they're supposed to be paying
And
tax-wise.
when did this start?
It's been a couple years now.
Okay, wow.
But now, so in New Hampshire, we don't see this because we don't have a sales tax in New Hampshire. So no business outside New Hampshire has to collect sales taxes for goods shipping into New Hampshire. So you'll never see in New Hampshire a sales tax at checkout. But almost every other state, you're going to now see a sales tax, and that sales tax amount isn't going to be accurate.
Wow.
It's absolutely crazy. And you might be wondering, well, how do brick and mortar businesses do it, right? Well, brick and mortar businesses do it. I don't have a problem with this because the tax collections, the tax laws are only going to be applicable to where the business is operating. So if I go into a Staples or a Best Buy or some local retailer, that store has to know at most 3 different taxing jurisdictions, the laws for 3 different taxing jurisdictions, because it's not where the customer lives that the taxes are determined based on. It's where the goods are sold that it's being determined on. But if it's an online retailer, that's not the case. It's where the customer lives, not where you're shipping from.
What the heck? That's so stupid too. And the other thing is, I was just having a conversation with people recently, and I don't remember like the topic, but it doesn't matter as much. I was just saying like this is why we care about laws, even if they're not enforced, because the government can just decide. Well, now we're enforcing it.
Well, selectively, they can shut anybody down.
Mm-hmm.
So any business they want to shut down, pretty much any state can stick their tax their IRS on that business, that out-of-state business, because some of the goods that customers in that, or some of their I don't want to say citizens, but it doesn't really, they don't have to be citizens necessarily, but somebody in their state that was in their state received goods from a business out of state. Yeah, it's crazy. And because it's impossible to comply, technically speaking, with the tax law, they can basically come in and shut you down or tax you to death. Basically say you owe this amount of tax, but you only collected that amount of tax. And if you collected too much tax, well, then you've committed another crime because you've committed some sort of fraud.
Well,
that's crazy. How would that work? Like if you, let's say like for online ordering, if you live like on a border, like if I live in Massachusetts, but I purchase groceries in New Hampshire and I order stuff like to pick up at a Walmart.
They've already been trying to do stuff about that. Yeah. Like in the convenience stores, they all had to do audits of where they are getting their suppliers from, because it's this weird thing where they're saying like people are buying cigarettes from other states and selling them in New Hampshire, and somehow that's making New Hampshire, the state, lose out on taxes. And so they made them sit down and audit all of where they're getting their every supply from and send that list to I know. I only heard about this because we know somebody that runs a convenience store, and he could give you the details more correctly, but it's basically that.
I don't know what's happened in that regard, but it's the laws are crazy and the enforcement's crazy and it's arbitrary.
It makes it hard
to
start or run a business.
It does. It really does.
More Free Talk Live coming up. 603-283-6160. Call in with whatever's on your mind.
If you're looking for work, you know what I mean by elevator speech. It's the short version, saying just enough to make the listener want to listen more. Even if you're not a job seeker, effective communication skills have never been more important, with money and attention so scarce now. So to cut through the clutter, choose every single word as though it was the last word the person you're speaking to will hear. Otherwise, it might be. Instead of saying, due to the fact that, say, because. And avoid mispronunciations. Say jewelry, not jewelry, which could offend. Undoubtedly, you don't want to say undoubtedly. And whatever you do, never use a preposition to end a sentence with. Just kidding. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The United States launched airstrikes against ISIS in the north of Nigeria on Christmas Day. U.S. President Donald Trump said they were to send a message to insurgents in the country who he claims are persecuting Christians. FSN's Jagruti Dave has more from Washington.
Donald Trump has been threatening military intervention in Nigeria for some time, and this was the justification he gave for these strikes, which he described as deadly in a social media post. He said ISIS terrorist scum have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. He added, "Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues." US Africa Command said their initial assessment is that multiple ISIS terrorists were killed in ISIS camps. The strikes were coordinated with the Nigerian government, whose foreign minister said they shared intelligence with the US.
India and Bangladesh summoned each other's envoys over protests outside their diplomatic missions as already tense ties spiral. The latest round of formal protests come after right-wing groups staged protests in several Indian cities over the killing of a Hindu garment worker in Bangladesh over allegations of blasphemy. FSN's Kshitij Nagar has more from New Delhi.
The summoning of the Indian High Commissioner by Bangladesh is the second such instance in as many days. Bangladeshi officials raised objections over protests and what they describe as a failure to curb demonstrations and targeting its diplomatic missions. The High Commission in Delhi remains under heavy police deployment, with security tightened and police forces deployed. The killing of a Hindu man in northern Bangladesh earlier in the month triggered public anger in India and sharpened concerns over minority safety. Indian authorities say they are closely tracking developments. The escalation comes amid broader political uncertainty in Bangladesh following the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina earlier this year.
U.S. President Trump announced a new type of battleship set to be used by the U.S. Navy, and it is one named after himself. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
Standing beside the Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State, Donald Trump announced that the U.S. will build 2 new Trump-class battleships. Mr. Trump told reporters on Monday he is calling them the Golden Fleet and said eventually there'll be 25 of them. Mr. Trump said the new ships will have 100 times the force and power of any other battleship ever built, adding there will be nothing else like them. The president said that the US has not built a battleship since 1994 and said each one will be the largest in the history of the world. He said they will command respect, but added that the world already respects America.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FS.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number to call in and bring up whatever's on your mind. We don't screen people out. That's the point of Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. You can change the subject. It's up to you. 603-283-6160. And if you're tired of the oppressive rules and moderation of the big tech social media sites, our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Social.freetalklive.com. And with you on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie.
Angelo.
And Mr. Penguin.
And we are going to get into this article from thehill.com. It's an opinion piece. And it says, wait, how's it an opinion piece? Okay, well, maybe they're saying like, no, yeah, this is somebody's opinion piece. It's the views expressed by contributors are their own and not that of the Hill. Okay. We are the free world now. That's in quotations. Europe declares war on free speech in the U.S. And I don't know what that means. We are the free world now. What are they saying? So it says, we are the free world now. Those words from Raphael Glucksmann, a French socialist member of the European Parliament. Wow, they've just got straight up socialists on the European Parliament or in.
What even is that like the governing body of the EU? Is that the European Parliament? Is that what they call them?
I honestly don't even know.
People don't understand this, but Europe has been very, the communists didn't disappear. The communists are still there. They're just operating under democratic, a system, basically.
It says the European Parliament is the directly elected legislative body of the EU, representing EU citizens and sharing lawmaking, budgetary, and supervisory powers with the Council of the EU.
So the people in the country vote for their EU senator, then?
Probably.
Yeah, they voted in the communists. They voted in the socialists.
Yeah, I get that.
Right, yeah.
But I'm just saying, I'm just confused on how the EU parliament. I didn't know it was a parliament.
Me either.
Is what ran the European Union. I thought it was more of like a UN kind of thing, but
no. Well, no, I mean they call it a parliament, but so each individual country. Okay, so the way the EU works is that each individual. So when they pass a law at the EU level, it's passed by Parliament, but then each individual country has to implement that law. Basically,
holy crap! They have a lot of people in this Parliament too. Oh, sorry. Did you have more to say?
No.
I said how many reps do each country get in European Parliament? It says each EU country gets a different number of members of the European Parliament based on its population. So I thought that was going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It says the minimum of the smallest country only has 6, and a maximum have 96 seats in their country, totaling 720 MEPs. That's members European Parliament for one term.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Which is a 5-year term.
So
Germany has 96.
How many? So there was. Did you say it was like 700 something?
720, and that's all of them together. Luxembourg and Cyprus and Malta only have 6, while Germany has 96. France has 81. Spain has 61.
So if you think about it, New Hampshire has one of the largest House of Representatives in the United States with about 400 reps.
Yep.
And so I think there might be what is the number of reps at the federal level? It's like I think it might be more than that. But
in the House of Representatives, I think everybody gets 2, and that's solid, right? Or is that the
that's
Senate?
the Senate. It's the House, though. I'm not sure how many.
I think it's like 455 or something right around there.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, you're right in terms of that Parliament being huge at the EU level.
435.
But the other thing to remember, though, is the population numbers, too. So what's the population of Europe versus the population of, say, the United States? The population of Europe is larger than the population of the United States.
And I know that New Hampshire is 400, right, in the House?
Yes, but it's a very, very small population.
Yeah, there's only 1.6 million people in New Hampshire. 1.4 million?
Yeah, I think it's like 1.4.
I've heard something like
1.3, 1.4, something like that.
You're represented with 4,000 other people? Or was that it?
It's like 2,000. But yeah, it's something like that.
That could be easy math to somebody who can do that, and I'm not good at math.
I didn't do the math. That's just what I remember.
I've heard it before,
being told that.
And now I'm just realizing that sounds a little off, but I don't know. Anyways, either way, so when you're looking at it in a population density kind of way, you have way fewer people that are being represented by one House of Representative in New Hampshire than anywhere else that I know of. You know what I mean? Like state, country.
I think we have the largest house in the country.
Definitely, that's true. I've heard that a million times.
Yeah, something like that.
So definitely, you're most well represented, quote unquote, in New Hampshire than any other state. But I would be surprised if there's even another country that does it. And if you think about I'm going to Google what's the entire population of all of Europe or EU at least.
I don't recall the exact numbers off the top of my head, but it's larger than the United States.
I think I would say 800 million to 1 billion.
Europe?
450 million.
That's it.
And I put European Union.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because you might be forgetting,
Yeah.
UK's not
Well, are you
involved
talking about Europe or are you talking about the European Union?
I put
because
EU specific.
Yeah, so the EU isn't all of Europe. Technically, like Russia is part of the EU, or I'm sorry, part of Europe, but not part of Russia is part of the Europe, but not a part of the EU. And there's also a few countries besides Russia,
like Belarus.
That are not part of the EU as well. But the EU has disturbingly taken. Actually, it's really scary how many countries the EU has basically gotten under its control, so to speak.
Yeah.
What people don't understand is that when you join the EU, there's all these laws that you have to like abide by and like pass in your own country, and it like a lot of those are really draconian. So like you basically are surrendering your freedom when you join the EU.
27 countries.
Yeah, to be less. Yeah.
So my main point is, 450 million people being represented by 700. That 700, I guess, seems a lot less surprising when you get to that.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So.
Oh man, I kind of lost my thing here where I'm trying to find the article. Oh, the hill. Okay, there we go. So this man said his name is Raphael Glucksmann. He said, "We are the free world now." Those words from Raphael Glucksmann, a French socialist member of the European Parliament, captured the pearl-clutching outrage of Europeans after the Trump administration did what no prior administration has ever done: stand up to Europe to defend freedom of speech. This week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio barred 5 figures closely associated with the European censorship efforts from traveling to the U.S. Whoa. I didn't hear about that.
The funny thing is that like Europe loves its censorship, but at the same time, Trump is like basically trying to do what Europe is doing.
In what way?
Like he's blocking people from Europe entering the United States, right? And there's other countries, like I remember I think it was Australia at one point, they blocked somebody who they didn't like, some right-wing person they didn't like, from entering the country. Trump's doing the same thing. And it was politics, basically.
But I guess this is only specifically they're giving Trump and I guess Marco Rubio too, a pat on the back for specifically standing up over freedom of speech specifically. Like they barred these people who were coming to try to censor Americans. But I don't know who these people are. It just said these 5 figures.
I think, so I'm not 100% sure here, but I think if I understand everything that's going on in the context here, what's happening is that Europe is basically, the politicians in Europe are trying to force companies like Google and Facebook and Meta and, basically, social networks to censor their websites, their users' content that is submitted by their users. And Trump is saying, no, we don't like that. We don't want you to be censoring Americans, because that's what's happening if you start censoring Facebook. It's not just a platform for Europe. It's a platform for the world.
Yeah.
And Europe is trying to basically bully American companies into not just censoring people in Europe, but censoring people in the United States too, effectively.
Yeah, it's crazy. But we do have a caller on the line, so I'm going to go to Uber George in Virginia. Uber George, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was listening to a show from last week about you guys were talking about Trump seizing Venezuelan oil tankers, right there, calling and saying it was a bit of piracy. And I just came across something that turns out maybe it's not, because apparently when Hugo Chavez came to power in Venezuela and he nationalized all the oil stuff, he took all this property that belonged to American oil companies like Exxon and and such. And basically, apparently they took the government of Venezuela to court saying, hey, you stole our stuff. This is not yours. You have no right to it. And Venezuela lost in court, but Venezuela, the Chavez government was saying, look, we're not going to pay that. This is ours now, and stuff like that. And so
you mean they took Cuba to court? Is that what you meant?
No, they took Venezuela. So like when Venezuela socialized and they went communist, they took a bunch of oil production equipment from Exxon and kicked the U.S. companies out and kept all the infrastructure that was owned by the U.S. oil companies.
Mm-hmm.
So the U.S. oil companies took them to court and was like, hey, you can't just kick us out and keep all our stuff. We got to be able to take our stuff with us. And they've lost. So
But that was recent?
I don't know if it was all that recent actually, but
no, but that's what
we need to back up and ask the question: what court were they taken? Was this a U.S. court? Was this a Venezuelan court? Was this a?
I think it was international
court? Because those are important factors. But we do need to back up a moment and say that's actually not uncommon. Lots of countries basically have partnerships with foreign companies, and then at some point, take over basically 100% control. Saudi Arabia, I think, is a good another example of that. When they started drilling, it was American companies, and then they had like a small percentage of ownership. It might have been 10%, something like that, and then it became 50%, and now it's 100%, right?
Yeah, but I think those companies though were paid back or something like that,
Yeah, like
that's not how that
contractually.
That's not quite how that works, guys. So the country in question, which has the oil, has control, right? And they get to dictate the terms. Now, as a company, you can choose not to do business with them, but if you're already doing business with them, your only choice is to leave, right? Now, maybe the country will, compensate you for it, but maybe they won't. It just depends. You are agreeing to operate under that country's laws, basically. So it's one of these things where, we may see this as being wrong, but again, it's not for us to decide. It's for those people in that country to decide.
International court, because when the companies made that agreement, Venezuela was under a completely different government, and it was before Hugo Chavez took power, essentially.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
what happened there? He did a Darth Vader going, "I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further."
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
My question though, Uber George, just to make sure we're talking about the same thing, are we talking about when in 1976, like that era, because that says that they nationalized oil assets, including some belonging to U.S. companies at the time? Are we talking that far back?
I'm not sure on that one. It didn't say. I was just what I read online was that it was saying that they were taken to international court. The court sided with the companies, and, hey, you still owe us at least for this money, and that now it's being enforced. That what Trump was doing was, enforcing that ruling.
Well, still taking a random oil tanker isn't the same as taking the money you're owed, right?
It's the value of the tankers plus the oil within. It's saying, this is yours. It goes towards what Venezuela owes you.
Yeah, the problem is that they're violating international law in doing so. I get that, like, there's a disagreement and there's a dispute going on here at an international level, but that doesn't necessarily change the fact that they have broken the law, at an international level.
I hear you on that, but I mean, if it was an international court that ruled that Venezuela was in the wrong and that they owe them, then doesn't it kind of cancel out a little bit on that though?
I'm really not so sure that it does. I mean, there's something called sovereignty, right? And, an international court doesn't have the right to just arbitrarily decide, anything, in any given country. The law of the land is what's decided by the people of that country. I'm
also just Googling for my life and I can't find anything about any of this. Like it says AI overview.
You can. I think you might be able to make a better argument that the people of Venezuela didn't vote for this president. He basically seized power or refused to leave when his term ran out and somebody else got elected.
And
so
even when I try to Google,
I'm not saying that I'm pro-war or anything like that. Although I would not be sad if Maduro, had himself.
I don't think anybody would be sad here if Maduro passed away.
Yeah,
but that still doesn't change things at a certain level.
And I wouldn't take let's start a war. But Maduro dies. You know what I mean?
I think there's something else.
I want him to die that bad.
There's also something else to think about here too, right? So, what right did the prior government have to sell off the oil in the first place, right?
I just haven't found anything while Googling that any of that is actually related. It's saying that the U.S. sees tankers in international waters that they claim are part of a dark fleet used by Venezuela to evade U.S. sanctions. So that's why they're saying, I watched
that's propaganda. That's 100% propaganda that you read.
Well, whether or not that's true or not, I haven't seen them say, hey, well, we're taking this because an international court said we won and we're just taking our winnings back. That I haven't
Because
seen
that hasn't been in the news.
Government's money. It's really Exxon's and Shell's.
But he's saying he read an article saying that.
Yeah, so
I
no,
just Googled it,
he's
and
citing historic cases, court cases, right? So it goes back many decades, right? He was that was from 1976, you said.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
something like that. So, I mean, that's not surprising that you're not seeing or hearing anything about that. But Trump did say something about he's just taking back something, and maybe that's what he's referencing. But I don't know. I don't know if I read that anywhere. But it might be what he's inferring to when he says we're taking oil back that's ours or something like that. Because he did suggest that like what he was taking like wasn't theft or wasn't a piracy. Because somehow, it was ours or something, which didn't make any sense at the time. But put it within those contexts, it makes a little bit more sense.
See, they're not. I'm getting something now. I googled why is Trump saying the Venezuelan oil actually belongs to him? Which
right.
That's just like a quick, and it says
Is
Trump has
1976?
repeatedly claimed that Venezuela stole oil, land, and assets, and that he asserts belong to the U.S. and he wants them back. His rationale: nationalization of assets. Trump refers to the actions taken by the Venezuelan government under former President Hugo Chavez, who nationalized his country's oils in the 1970s and again in 2007.
Yep.
During this process, American oil companies like ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips had their assets and oil fields seized or expropriated.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so this is the problem with this is that when you enter a country and you do business in a foreign country, you take on the liabilities and the risk of doing business in that country. Once they nationalized it, these companies had no right to those oil. The only reason they had the oil in the first place was because a prior government basically sold off those assets. But again, you're subject to the whim of the people, so to speak, or the whim of the ruler. And in this particular case, the ruler changed, and the ruler decided to nationalize.
But it does say that the U.S. companies pursued legal action through international arbitration and won billions of dollars worth in compensation. Venezuela, struggling under economic pressure and sanctions, has largely refused to pay these amounts.
Right, because it's a sovereign country. Nobody gets to dictate to, regardless of what international courts say, they don't have that much power, and the sovereign country gets to decide these things. And Venezuela, the leader in Venezuela, decided them.
Yeah, it says Trump has a long history of stating that the U.S. should take the oil from other countries after military engagements such as Iraq and Syria, viewing it as compensation for U.S. efforts or a way to prevent wealth from funding hostile groups.
He
doesn't care about.
So the problem is that you're declaring war. You're literally committing to an act of war because of private interests in the United States that felt that they were harmed or wronged in some way.
On the other hand, at least this is not like Iraq 2003. We're not going in with
That's the key word. Yeah.
I mean, as long as it doesn't happen.
Trump is trying to do everything to be able to create the circumstances in which he can justify an invasion.
And that's just so crazy, right? Because all of us had always been told Trump is like the choice of peace, and he wouldn't, start wars. He never started any new wars, is what they're always saying.
No, but he caused them. Or he's about to cause a war.
Yeah, he's about to.
Whether or not he started them.
I think I feel like a neocon would say that's like the job of the government, though, is to protect U.S. people doing business.
I mean, yeah, you see, the problem is that the U.S. only gets to protect U.S. interests within the United States,
I'm
right?
also confused about
we should not be protecting interests of companies doing business externally.
The first time we sent the Marines anywhere, we sent them to off the coast of Somalia to protect traders. I just mean that's
right. So the United States for hundreds of years has been invading other countries for American corporate shareholders, right?
I think it was Tunisia with the Barbary pirates.
Yeah,
I'm going to make the argument.
Leatherneck, right?
I'm going to make the argument that we shouldn't have been doing that, and we should stop doing that.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm just saying that's I can see where people are saying this is just status. This is what the U.S. government does. It's what they've been doing forever.
Why should my tax dollars be?
No, but I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying this is
go to fund a war in order to
this is a
secure
normie way to look.
Some other company's profits or somebody else's profits.
And
that
it's more than just
sense.
their profits. Like they're saying that they own the oil in another country, that anybody should know that any sovereign state owns the oil under their ground, but Trump is saying
ultimately,
he owns
at the end of the
Why?
day, yeah, until that oil is outside their country.
Just because they used to
Like,
work
yeah.
there doesn't mean like he owns it. I don't get
Well, no,
that.
I don't think it's the oil. I think it's the infrastructure that's built
he
by
claimed-
ExxonMobil.
He
like
claimed
the
they
pumps
stole
themselves.
Venezuela stole from them oil, land, and assets,
Literally oil, land, and assets, which is in the ground in
and he wants
Venezuela.
them quote back.
Yeah, I mean, this is look, guys. No matter what the government tells you, they have the ability to change the terms of the deal, and Venezuela did.
Yeah,
it's no different when the United States does it. When the U.S. raises taxes, do you get to just decide? Oh, I just don't want to pay my. No, they're going to come after you if you don't pay your taxes. The government gets to, unfortunately, for better or worse, these governments get to dictate the terms, whether you like it or not. And these corporate interests went into Venezuela and they made a deal,
It's
and the
like-
government decided to change those terms.
They're probably benefiting off the corruption in Venezuela, and then it came to bite them in the butt.
Well,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
they benefit from the corruption, and then when a different dictator got into power, they basically changed the deal. They changed the terms, because that
Trump wants
dictator
it
wasn't
back.
benefiting from it.
Mhm.
I mean, this people
And, yeah,
take
we're gonna-
advantage. They take advantage of the population. Look at what happened in Russia when it went democratic, right? I mean, look at who owns the oil in Russia. It's literally like one of 7. I don't even think it's one of 7. It's like it's like all the oil in Russia is owned by like one guy, basically. It's something like insane like that. There's 7 oligarchs, but I think they have different businesses in different areas. Like one owns steel, one owns oil. Like it's really it's crazy, right?
crazy.
It's crazy.
Something not hold to that guy.
It's crazy, but you kind of makes you question whether or not those assets are legitimately owned by these individuals.
Yeah, he couldn't possibly go and defend each oil.
Well, it's not even that, but it's the fact that the means at which the assets were acquired in the first place were not legitimate in any sense of the word. So how would it be like if let's say socialists got back into power in Russia? Why would it be wrong for them to take back the oil, for example, or take back the steel, that was sold off for, pennies on the dollar, pennies on the ruble, or whatever the equivalent expression would be, right? I'm not arguing for socialism. I'm not doing that at all here, guys. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you got to keep things in context.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what that's how people, I think, look now, because we're in this like stage of this was our land, but before that it was somebody else's land. Like, how far back are we going until we consider this to be somebody's?
Yeah, sure.
Right, because you could go all the way back and say that it's not even the Venezuelan government's. It should go back to like the tribes of the Amazon, because they were technically there first.
Yeah, there's been many rulers, in power.
It's annoying when. Thank you for the call, Uber George. But the idea that like we're arguing for the government to own the land is difficult, because we're just claiming, well, this other government has a lesser claim at the very least. At least that's where I'm coming from. You?
I mean, I don't think the government should own the land at all, but at the same time, the way in which this land ends up into people's private hands,
In 603-283-6160, more Free Talk Live is coming up.
Free Talk Live.
Dear FTL, we've got chemtrail down here in West Virginia. Be nice. You've never seen them? Contrail disappear relatively quickly compared to the chemtrail.
If anybody is listening that wants to fight the chemtrails, there's things called
how are you gonna fight them? Wait a minute.
Called
Big
cloud
fans?
busters.
Wad busters?
I gotta give UFO hoaxers more credit. At least they go out and build a little saucer and they tie it to a
cardboard
string.
saucer.
And I'd love to see a semi-legitimate website reporting anything on this particular issue. I don't think
you're gonna get that.
I just asked semi-legitimate.
You want a doctor to say it? There's a bunch of websites for doctors.
Doctors. Just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you're an expert or smart.
Or it doesn't even mean you're a doctor.
Okay.
Okay, go on my website later on tonight and I'll be Dr. Manwich, okay?
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The United States launched airstrikes against ISIS in the north of Nigeria on Christmas Day. U.S. President Donald Trump said they were to send a message to insurgents in the country who he claims are persecuting Christians. FSN's Jagruti Dave has more from Washington.
Donald Trump has been threatening military intervention in Nigeria for some time, and this was the justification he gave for these strikes, which he described as deadly in a social media post. He said ISIS terrorist scum have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. He added, "Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues." US Africa Command said their initial assessment is that multiple ISIS terrorists were killed in ISIS camps. The strikes were coordinated with the Nigerian government, whose foreign minister said they shared intelligence with the US.
India and Bangladesh summoned each other's envoys over protests outside their diplomatic missions as already tense ties spiral. The latest round of formal protests come after right-wing groups staged protests in several Indian cities over the killing of a Hindu garment worker in Bangladesh over allegations of blasphemy. FSN's Kshitij Nagar has more from New Delhi.
The summoning of the Indian High Commissioner by Bangladesh is the second such instance in as many days. Bangladeshi officials raised objections over protests and what they describe as a failure to curb demonstrations and targeting its diplomatic missions. The High Commission in Delhi remains under heavy police deployment, with security tightened and police forces deployed. The killing of a Hindu man in northern Bangladesh earlier in the month triggered public anger in India and sharpened concerns over minority safety. Indian authorities say they are closely tracking developments. The escalation comes amid broader political uncertainty in Bangladesh following the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina earlier this year.
U.S. President Trump announced a new type of battleship set to be used by the U.S. Navy, and it is one named after himself. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
Standing beside the Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State, Donald Trump announced that the U.S. will build 2 new Trump-class battleships. Mr. Trump told reporters on Monday he is calling them the Golden Fleet and said eventually there'll be 25 of them. Mr. Trump said the new ships will have 100 times the force and power of any other battleship ever built, adding there will be nothing else like them. The president said that the US has not built a battleship since 1994 and said each one will be the largest in the history of the world. He said they will command respect, but added that the world already respects America. Mitch McCann, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN. The U.S. confirmed it carried out a strike on an alleged drug smuggling boat, killing one person. Along with the seizure of another Venezuelan oil tanker over the weekend, it continues the pressure campaign against Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The US military confirming that it had killed what it called one narco-terrorist. It released footage of that strike, with the US Southern Command confirming on X that it had carried out the attack upon the direction of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. It said the boat had been transiting along known narco-trafficking routes. But all of this as Venezuela has called for an urgent meeting at the UN Security Council to push back on what it's called the aggression of the United States. China and Russia both coming out with strong support for Caracas, with China saying that the US was in serious violation of international law with its continued actions against Venezuela, its oil tankers and alleged drug smuggling boats. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A car bomb killed a top military official in Moscow. FSN's Daria Bondarchuk reports from the Russian capital.
A car bomb exploded in southern Moscow on Monday, killing General Fanil Sarvarov. He headed the Operational Training Directorate of the Russian Army's General Staff. The top military official was blown up in the parking lot of his apartment building, reportedly minutes after he sat in his car and traveled just a few meters. He became the third person of his rank to be killed in car bombing incidents over the past 12 months. Russia's investigative committee says Lieutenant General Sarvarov was killed in an explosion possibly orchestrated by Ukrainian intelligence services. Daria Bondarchuk, Moscow.
That was a look at some of the week's top stories. Ira Spitzer reporting.
For the past several years now, area woman Caitlin Mooney has been convinced that each and every one of her friends should be a professional comedian. Our reporters spoke to Caitlin this morning about her, quote, hilarious group of friends.
Karen is so funny. I can't even explain it. She's always just saying whatever on her mind. She has this totally sassy attitude. You just can't help but laugh. My roommate Rashmi, she always has these hilarious stories that, they're just too much. I'm always telling her that she should just go up on stage and talk. Everyone would love it.
Mooney went on to say that her good friend Lauren is so funny she could, quote, definitely be on Saturday Night Live or The Office, a sentiment she echoed about a number of her other acquaintances, including her childhood friend Marcia, her college roommate Angela, her coworker Julie, and even her sister Jennifer.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. You can get in on the conversation with us like Uber George did and bring up whatever's on your mind. And I love that. It brought up a whole new topic than what we were talking about and taught me something I didn't know before. In fact, I remember one of the things they were talking about when they seized that oil tanker was that they were saying, well, really, it's just ours anyway. But I didn't know what their reasoning was. I still think it's flawed reasoning. But you would have had to hear. Oh, definitely flawed. You would have had to hear Uber. Sorry, I usually mute you guys while I open the show because I have this to read and I just need everybody to let me get that out. But I forgot and I censored you guys.
Yeah, no worries. Definitely flawed is all I was saying.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was just playing devil's advocate. I was just saying that from their worldview, which is a flawed worldview, right? I'm not disagreeing with you, but that's just how they're going to justify it to the masses.
You're just saying it was nothing new.
Yeah, this isn't new. This is just a playbook.
So, in things that are somewhat new, the European Union has been. We've actually covered multiple different articles about this. The European Union has been doing many things to try and make their censorship laws apply to Americans and people in other countries.
Well, I guess American companies is the big part because they want to fine. They don't want to fine the user. They want to fine Twitter for letting the German man see the tweet that they're not allowed to see.
I think they want to do both. Look what the UK is doing. The UK has actually gone and fined people or arrested people over their speech.
Well, but that's not over the EU law. That's over British law.
Yes.
Okay, this is true, but there's not that much difference between British law and EU law. They were literally one and the same.
Yeah,
until
but they're
not
I'm not going to have a.
And they're both doing the similar.
Is an EU police officer going to show show up to the man in Texas's house and try to give him a fine for tweeting something. No, that's why they want to go after the X that allows the German man to see the
I'm just saying I'm not sure that they're only doing that. They might be wanting to do both.
The problem is they're unable to do that, right? So they're much more easily able to coerce American companies because the American companies also operate in Europe. The man in Texas may never even leave the United States. So trying to, fine him when they have no means of enforcement of those fines, because the U.S. courts aren't going to enforce EU fines unless there's an equivalent U.S. law. That's going to be impossible to achieve, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying. They're not going after Americans. They're going after American companies.
Well, they're going after Americans through American companies.
I guess,
yeah.
It says that we already covered in the last segment that Marco Rubio barred these 5 officials who wanted to travel to the United States, and he barred them and they're closely associated with European censorship. But he doesn't say this doesn't say who they are. It says this includes Thierry Breton, a former European Union commissioner responsible for digital policy, but it doesn't say who the other 4 people were. In a post on X, Marco Rubio declared that the U.S. will no longer tolerate these egregious acts of extraterritorial censorship and will target leading figures of the global censorship industrial complex from entering the United States.
I have a feeling, and I don't know if I read this or not, but he may be one of those people, maybe one of the people behind the GDPR, like one of the leading figures behind that.
It does say some more about him. I don't know what GDPR is.
GDPR is what the General Data Regulation Protection Act, something like that. It basically is a really, really bad law. That
is it like the one from 2 years ago?
It's even older. It's even older than that, I think. It's not that old, but it's maybe 4 or 5, I think, at this point. But anyway, it's one of these laws that they basically U.S. websites are especially news websites, even like the Hollywood Reporter, for example, they're blocking all of Europe because it basically requires you to jump through all of these hoops in order to serve your information to EU customers and stuff.
Oh yes, this is what I'm thinking of. I just didn't know its name.
Yeah, for example, if you put up a product page in French, the European government might consider you advertising to people in France, and therefore they consider you to be in their jurisdiction. Sorry, even though you're a U.S. company that doesn't operate outside the United States, you might ship outside the United States.
What if you're Canadian? See, that seems crazy.
Yeah,
either way, it's just crazy.
So they're trying to enforce their jurisdiction on companies outside of Europe, basically. So it would apply to a Canadian company shipping into Europe as well.
So this guy Breton, his name is Thierry. It's like Terry, but it's with a TH. Thierry Breton achieved infamy as one of the architects of the massive EU censorship system, which is now being globalized. Armed with the notorious Digital Service Act, Breton and others threatened American companies and officials that they would have to yield to European standards of free speech. After Breton learned that Musk was planning to interview Trump before the last presidential election, he even warned the ex-owner that he would be monitored and potentially subject to EU fines.
The EU is not a fan of free speech. Right. They have been trying to crack down as much as they possibly can.
They've been raiding Germans' houses over internet.
They've done all sorts of terrible things in Europe when it comes to speech, from outlawing or indirectly outlawing things like Tor that provide privacy and ability for people to anonymously communicate things that may not be popular, for example, to just things like the GDPR, which is sort of like indirect censorship, basically, by forcing absurd regulations on companies. Companies. And by the way, I said ship into Europe before. I shouldn't have said that, because at that point you may actually have to comply with some sort of regulation. But when you're a company like the Hollywood Reporter, which is literally just a news website and writing articles for it, you shouldn't have to comply with European law just because you maybe publish some articles in French.
Wow.
There's people outside of France, right, that might be reading your content, like maybe the Canadians. There's a large French Canadian population, right? But the European government with the GDPR basically tries to tries to basically coerce you into complying with their laws through fines and things that probably aren't enforceable against you as a U.S. company, but nonetheless, based off things like what language or what currency you advertise in, or all that kind of thing.
Yep. So it says that the guy at the very beginning that we said, he said the quote, "We are the free world now," whatever the heck that means.
It's absurd. It's just such an absurd statement.
It goes on to talk about more things. He said socialist Glucksmann, that's his name, a French socialist, one of the more deadly socialists in the world by country. Not him himself, but French socialists, pretty deadly. He is now irate at this scandalous sanction against Terry Breton. "We are Europeans," he declared. "We must defend our laws, our principles, our interests. In other words, this is a war over whether Europe or the U.S. Constitution will dictate the scope of free speech for American companies and citizens. Breton and his colleagues are finally being treated as what they are, a clear and present danger to the indispensable right that defines all Americans. The EU has been enlisted by anti-free speech figures in the U.S. to force companies like X and Facebook to, U.S. figures that hate free speech have been going to EU to get them to enforce this, to force companies like X and Facebook to restore censorship of Americans."
France literally kidnapped the founder of Telegram.
Oh, yeah. How long ago was that?
Like this year.
Yeah.
And
months,
they've been
right?
holding him hostage.
Do they still have him?
Yeah, they still have him.
Wow.
He's been allowed to leave the country, but yes, for short stints. But yeah, he's required to return every so often.
And so
to
what if
France.
he just goes somewhere that doesn't extradite?
And they held, yeah, that's a possibility. But yeah, basically the problem is that a lot of these people, they want to be able to travel, right?
Yeah.
And if you travel to any country that has a treaty with France, that country may extradite you to France.
I like how...
isn't the French the ones who got John McAfee?
Yes, I think
No,
so.
I thought it was Spain.
Oh, no, that was Spain, wasn't it?
He
yeah,
at
that
least
was
killed
Spain.
himself in Spain. Maybe that's where they first got him. But I do want to go to this caller. Unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Oh, this is Max from Manchester.
Hello. What's
Hi,
on
Max.
your mind, Max from Manchester?
What's up?
So at least in New Hampshire, where we are organizing the Republican Liberty Caucus, they're way ahead of us in some other states. But for people who live in New Hampshire or anywhere near New Hampshire, in New England, you can come visit us. We're doing a weekly meetup at Strange Brew in Manchester every Sunday at 4:20.
Awesome. So every Sunday at 4:20. Unfortunately, that does conflict with Social Sunday. But wait, where is it again? Strange Brew in actually, people could get back. But there's always the idea that if we're at a protest on a Sunday in Manchester, we won't make it back for Social Sunday. But we could always attend. What are you calling it again?
What's that?
What are you calling the event again?
It's just the Republican Liberty Caucus meetup. It's right before the Bitcoin meetup at 5:00. So there'll be some overlap there. But lots of states are reorganizing. I did want to mention also, if it's all right to jump to a different topic.
Yes, that's fine.
So you know how I guess it's Peter Thiel has like $5 billion or something in his Roth IRA?
I've never heard that.
Fidelity and a few others are letting you can put your more aggressive investments, if it's like money in your bank, money that you have lying around, your post-tax dollars you can put into your Roth IRA, and people are buying crypto. I have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and other stuff in my Roth IRA on Fidelity, and even if it grows like 10 times or 50 times or something like that, rule about a Roth IRA is that you don't have to pay capital gains tax, and it doesn't have required minimum distributions, and it's a lot more flexible than other types of IRA, like a 401k. So
I believe you still have to pay tax on that when you take the money out. You just don't have to pay the capital gains, right?
So that's a 401k, but a health savings account and a Roth IRA, actually the health savings account is probably a better all around deal, but it's hard to get crypto into an HSA. But you can have you could just get $7,000 worth of Ethereum every year. Or you could dollar cost average like $150 a week from your paycheck directly into your Roth IRA, and just keep buying Ethereum or Solana or Litecoin or whatever you want to buy. And like I say, if it goes up 10 times or 50 times by the time you retire, you can just pull it out and it's 100% tax free because Congress figures that you've already paid taxes on it initially, and because the limitation on it is only $7,000 a year going in, I think it's going up to $7,500 a year next year. And if you're turning 50, the year that you turn 50, I think it goes up by another $1,000. So you can put like another like $8,500 a year or something like that into it. It is kind of a loophole. It is kind of a hack, but lots of people who just have like maybe 5, 10, 15% of their portfolio is in crypto. They're using their Roth IRA to do the whole thing just in case, they pick one that goes up 50 times and they don't want to pay taxes on it when they retire. So they'll just like pull it out when they're 55, 60 years old and be able to retire early.
Well, that's nice. So is this something new or something? Is that why you're telling us that? Like, is that like some new, or you're just saying like, oh, well, this is a kind of way to get away away from doing the capital gains taxes
I think this
with
has been the case
Bitcoin?
for a while, hasn't it?
It has been, but Fidelity has added more options. I think that Vanguard lets you do it now.
I mean, so one of the things that you're doing here, though, is you're surrendering control. You're not in control of that crypto
That's
anymore.
a good point, like of controlling the crypto.
Yeah, I mean, I get why people are doing it for tax reasons, but at the same time, this is something I also think people need to be wary of, because as soon as you do something like this, the government has something they can seize from you. Whereas if you have crypto in a wallet, they can try and seize it. Right, a self-custody wallet, that is. They can try and seize it, but it's a heck of a lot harder for them to actually do so.
I still think it's pretty good information for someone who is looking to, cash out their crypto without having to pay capital gains. But I don't know, didn't the Genius Act make it less bad?
It's certainly I think individually it depends on what your circumstances are, right? Like ultimately.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of us have like, you'll have like some people have like some in their wallet. They'll have like a laptop, an old laptop that still has some crypto here and there. And people looking for ways to kind of max out. And you can actually do a Roth conversion. So if you have a bunch of money in your 401k, you can chunk over like $7,000 a year or $3,000 a year into your Roth IRA, and take a bunch of like slow moving, underperforming stocks. Tons of people have money in their 401k. You can go to your financial advisor or tax preparer and move that money into your Roth IRA, and now you can buy crypto with money that's just kind of sitting there getting 3, 4, 5, 6%.
I think you make some interesting. I think these are some very interesting investment vehicles, but at the same time, you're also talking to a bunch of libertarians that don't trust the government at all. So
Well, I do got to ask you to bring that back. Are you part of the libertarian arm of this Republican Libertarian meetup?
So the Republican Liberty Caucus is kind of like more of a big tent. It includes like constitutionalists, libertarians, some kind of like, absolutely minimal government, reformers, school choice folks, one issue folks. But mainly a lot of it's like the third party movement. They've tried to get on the ballot. In New Hampshire, I had ballot access legislation in when I was in the legislature, and both parties were just like 100% against it. And they hated the idea of third parties, and they felt like it just kind of screwed everything up. But you still have independents and third parties getting on the ballot. So with the RLC, we can kind of take on like big government, prohibitionist, rhino, neocon, whatever in the state primary, which is what I did. Win the primary and then go take on the Democrat and kind of just do it like one opponent at a time. It gives you like, it's an uphill battle still, but you can take one, you take on one in the Republican primary in September 8th, and then you take on the other one November 3rd.
Yep. That all makes sense to me, and it's just like kind of the more Big Ten, like my actual question was, are you currently a representative?
No, I'm getting asked, believe it or not, people are asking me to run for state Senate and state house at the same time. I'm not sure if I want to run again right away. It is kind of, it's kind of expensive. It eats up a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get it's a lot easier to add a new law than to take an old one away. And I spent a lot of years trying to like reduce penalties and protect your rights and get criminal justice reform stuff through. And it's really hard to get like the good stuff through.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Well, thank you. And it sounds like a good meetup for like being able to meet those New Hampshire representatives that you want to talk to, and like if you have a bill idea and stuff like that. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You know, the thing
Absolutely.
we should if we really wanted to cause chaos, we need to get rid of the R's and the D's next to the names on the polls when people go to vote, basically.
Just the polls?
When people go to the polls, they see a D or an R next to the name, or maybe an L sometimes.
Yeah, that would be like,
But-
we'd have to remove a whole bunch of stuff. And thank you so much for
But
the
if you
call,
get
Max.
rid of that, nobody would know who to vote for because almost
Right.
everybody votes based off the party line, and
Yeah.
they don't know who the candidates are. So you cause some serious chaos.
That would be awesome, but there'd be all kinds of things.
I don't know that would be good for libertarians or not, but it certainly would make for even more chaos than already exists.
Well, I mean, I don't really think that anybody's going to do it, but also...
Oh, I don't think it has a chance.
Yeah, there's more things that would have to be removed from that as well, I think. Because, like, right now, there's even, like, you can press a button in some places where you just vote down party lines. Did you know that? Because I did that in Utah. Maybe it's not a New Hampshire thing at all. I did it in Utah when I first voted for Trump.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. And I didn't even know anything about the other people running. I was just like, obviously, I'm going to go vote Republican.
I mean,
That's how it was at the time.
We have paper ballots in New Hampshire, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true. Well, back to the stuff we were talking about before. Basically, censorship from from Europe this time. You know, it's funny, like Marco Rubio getting to tweet that and stuff like that. They want to make themselves look like, oh, the United States, we care about free speech. But the government, the United States, the government people, the government goons and killers and thieves, they don't really care. It's just, a political thing for them at any point in time. It says the EU has been enlisted by anti-free speech figures in the U.S. to force companies like X and Facebook to restore censorship of Americans. After Musk bought Twitter with a pledge to restore free speech protections, Hillary Clinton called upon European officials to force him to censor under Europe's Digital Services Act. I didn't hear about that. That's horrible.
That's another one of those bad laws for sure.
Nina Jankovic, the former head of Biden's infamous Disinformation Governance Board, appeared before the European Parliament. She called upon the 27 EU countries to fight against the US. Whoa! Which she described as a global threat. What? She's part of Biden's board in the US government, and she's going to the European Parliament and saying that the United States is a global threat, so please fight against us. That's crazy.
You know what's funny is, wasn't it the Democrats who were going after the libertarians, calling us what was the word?
Domestic terrorists.
No, it wasn't that. But it was close. Do you remember
dissidents?
Oh, maybe it was dissident. Yeah, they were calling us like dissidents or something like that because we were what did we try to do? We tried to get a law passed to declare independence in New Hampshire.
You mean just in New Hampshire?
Yeah, when we tried to declare independence in New Hampshire through the legislature.
It's the word that means a seditionist.
Sedition, right. Talk about seditious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right? A good point. That's exactly what that seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that almost sounds like not even sedition. That's almost like outright treason, going to another government and being like, "Hey, can you hurt the place I'm from? Thank you."
That I represent too.
Right, right. Democrat. Hillary Clinton, right? Democrat, right?
No, it's actually, in this case, it's Nina Jankovic. But
is she
Hillary
Democrat?
Clinton called upon the European Union officials to force Elon Musk to censor her. That's different.
Yeah. Well, either way, I mean, if we're talking about the Democrats doing this, it sounds very, very hypocritical.
It really does. So the EU enthusiastically took up the challenge when they asked for it. This year, I spoke in the Berlin World Forum, which boosted the slogan, "A New World Order with European Values." Whoa. Bill and Hillary Clinton and other Americans cheered on the European efforts. The Digital Services Act bars speech that is viewed as disinformation or incitement, which would definitely be us.
Oh, yeah.
When it was passed over the condemnation, incitement to not engage or obey.
I presume that incitement is more broad than incitement to violence because we obviously don't incite violence. But
right, exactly. I wanted to clear that up.
What you're referencing.
Yeah, they'd be like, they're inciting people to not obey our edicts. And that's exactly what they would call it.
Yep.
When the Digital Services Act was passed over the nations of many of us in the free speech community, European Commission Executive Vice President Margaret Vestager celebrated by declaring that it is not a slogan anymore. That what is illegal offline should also be seen and dealt with as illegal online. Now it is a real thing. Democracy's back.
What are you talking about? Nothing can be illegal online in the sense that the internet is the world.
More Free Talk Live coming up. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The United States launched airstrikes against ISIS in the north of Nigeria on Christmas Day. U.S. President Donald Trump said they were to send a message to insurgents in the country who he claims are persecuting Christians. FSN's Jagruti Dave has more from Washington.
Donald Trump has been threatening military intervention in Nigeria for some time, and this was the justification he gave for these strikes, which he described as deadly in a social media post. He said ISIS terrorist scum have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. He added, "Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues." US Africa Command said their initial assessment is that multiple ISIS terrorists were killed in ISIS camps. The strikes were coordinated with the Nigerian government, whose foreign minister said they shared intelligence with the US.
India and Bangladesh summoned each other's envoys over protests outside their diplomatic missions as already tense ties spiral. The latest round of formal protests come after right-wing groups staged protests in several Indian cities over the killing of a Hindu garment worker in Bangladesh over allegations of blasphemy. FSN's Kshitij Nagar has more from New Delhi.
The summoning of the Indian High Commissioner by Bangladesh is the second such instance in as many days. Bangladeshi officials raised objections over protests and what they describe as a failure to curb demonstrations and targeting its diplomatic missions. The High Commission in Delhi remains under heavy police deployment, with security tightened and police forces deployed. The killing of a Hindu man in northern Bangladesh earlier in the month triggered public anger in India and sharpened concerns over minority safety. Indian authorities say they are closely tracking developments. The escalation comes amid broader political uncertainty in Bangladesh following the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina earlier this year.
U.S. President Trump announced a new type of battleship set to be used by the U.S. Navy, and it is one named after himself. FSN's Mitch McCann reports.
Standing beside the Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State, Donald Trump announced that the US will build 2 new Trump-class battleships. Mr. Trump told reporters on Monday he is calling them the Golden Fleet and said eventually there'll be 25 of them. Mr. Trump said the new ships will have 100 times the force and power of any other battleship ever built, adding there will be nothing else like them. The president said that the US has not built a battleship since 1994 and said each one will be the largest in the history of the world. He said they will command respect, but added that the world already respects America.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live is back. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can call in and bring up whatever's on your mind. That's the whole point of Free Talk Live. You can change the subject. You can disagree with us. It doesn't matter because it's Free Talk Live and you can call in about whatever you want. With you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Angelo.
And Mr. Penguin.
And that number is 603-283-6160. And we have had many different things to talk about. In the interim between the two segments, I was bringing up, did you know which state is the only one state that has made cannibalism illegal? I just learned this, and it's Idaho. And you might think, oh, maybe it was, like they heard about the Donner Party eating each other. No, it was in the 1980s.
Now, you also need to clarify, it's not legal to murder somebody in order to cannibalize them.
Yeah.
You have to
murder
wait
is still
until they
legal in every
die,
state.
and then once it comes out of the morgue, I guess, then you can eat them.
But even
Wouldn't
then,
that be considered like desecration of a corpse?
Yeah, I was going to say, even then, there is
not just like
enough rules that make it like essentially
crime.
illegal. And yeah, there are so many ways. But actually, this is the thing. In some states, this is what I heard this whole video about it. You can eat human meat, but you have to buy it you have to buy it from some other, like, first of all, there has to be like a third party here, and you buy it from that company. And I don't remember. Oh man, I'm missing like the caveat I was about to get into. And
Human meat or horse meat?
No, human meat.
That's.
I don't even understand how would
the
you
long pour.
How did you even
because like
get
the person like
a hold
agreed to be part of it or something like that. So like when they died of natural circumstances. Yeah, exactly.
So wait, could you? What about? Oh my gosh! What if you get hooked up with the Canadian company that kills people, like the assistants in dying, the maids, people? So you can
suicide.
just buy depressed people's meat and then sell it,
bodies, and then eat it.
Yeah, because they just sign it away anyways. Because what do they care? They're killing themselves.
I'm sorry, but like, I just can't imagine anybody.
Soylent Green, dude.
Yeah.
That's horrifying. I did want to bring up this thing that we probably should have brought up closer to the ICE conversation, because like we already did talk a lot about the ICE stuff we already had to say. I mean, actually, Angelo came in the second segment. Maybe he hasn't got to say everything he was interested in saying about it, but this from Mediaite. Well, I don't even know how the heck you'd say that. Mediaite.com. The TSA is giving the names of all air travelers to ICE. You have some weird websites when you get your news off Drudge. It's like you click on it and then all of a sudden you're on Mediaite.com. I thought it was Meditate. No, it's Mediaite.com. The Transportation Security Administration is providing Immigration and Customs Enforcement with the names of all travelers passing through American airports. That's pretty crazy. The TSA has submitted lists of names to the immigration agency multiple times a week since the program began in March. The New York Times reported on Friday, but this is a bit older of an article I held on to. It's December 12th. So, ICE then checks travelers' information against its own internal list of those subject to deportations. Though the number of those deported due to this program is unknown, documents obtained by the Times show that at least 2 high-profile arrests were carried out based on TSA's information. One was, this woman's name is not Amy, it's Annie, I guess. Maybe it's Annie. Maybe that's how you say it, A-N-Y. Annie Lucia Lopez Beloza, the college student arrested at Boston Logan Airport while traveling to visit her family for Thanksgiving. This was another crazy one because she was like been in America all her life too.
Let me make sure I understand this correctly. So we all have to surrender our privacy because of 2 high-profile arrests.
Yeah, I guess so. And then again, it's unknown how many have been.
How do people justify this in their head that like support government? I don't get this.
This one, the Annie Lucia Lopez Beloza one, is like when you read about that, it's crazy. It's like
the story is crazy too. Yeah. It's like
no one would want it.
Yeah.
Well, not no one, but I bet a majority of Americans don't want people like her deported. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Right.
So the college student arrested at Boston Logan Airport while traveling to visit her family for Thanksgiving. She was met by immigration officers at her gate and deported to Honduras 2 days later. It's so scary. It's just scary to be like a 18-year-old girl or whatever deported, and she's from here. Like I read it's not explaining the rest of this. It says,
I'm sorry, wait, what? She's from here?
That's what I'm saying. Like
so she was born in Honduras, but she immigrated here and has been living
young,
here when
she's just a college student.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier in the show. It's I don't understand how people can like hold up signs and support Trump and and it's not just Trump, but yeah, I mean, like, it doesn't matter whether it's Biden or whoever is in power. These people are scum.
She was 19. It says that it talks about how that I brought up a CNN article to see like how old is she. She has been in the United States since she was 7 years old when her parents brought her here to seek asylum, and she was deported even after a federal judge issued an order barring the government from removing her. Yeah, this was such a weird thing. I read about this one in particular.
Are they still doing the whole? See, I thought they okay. So supposedly they were ordered to stop extraditing people that were like not allowed to be extradited because of judges' orders, right?
Well, I think just
was this
overstayed
before
a
that
visa.
happened?
I don't know what
How
you're
did
talking
she
about.
overstay
Actually,
a visa? She's been here since she was 7, right? So it's like that's a long time. That's like over 10 years.
Oh, here's what it is, not a visa. So in 2014, an immigration judge ordered her removal, but she just stayed in the country illegally instead. So like you can get an article, sorry, not an article. You can get a letter in the mail that says you must come to the courthouse and you're going to be deported.
Yep.
You can just not go to the courthouse.
Right.
So I guess that's what she did.
I gotcha.
But that was 2014 and she's only 19 now. So like she had to be really young then.
So wait, when she was 14, she got?
No, she wasn't 14. If she's 19 now,
She was 19.
She's born in
She got
2000.
the letter when she was 19? No, wait.
No,
when did she
got
get the letter?
In 2014, but she's 19 now. So I don't know how many.
She was 9?
So she would have been 9. She got a letter for deportation?
Maybe her parents got it, but you know what I'm saying? Like she was ordered from a judge.
I'm following you. I'm following you.
I guess their asylum was denied and they were ordered to leave. I guess the
And
whole
they didn't
family was,
leave.
and they didn't leave.
See, this is the messed up part. It's like these are minors that we're talking about. They never had any ability to influence any of this in the first place. So what right do we now have to extradite them? I mean, this is just messed up.
Well, were her parents deported in 2014 or are they still in the country?
I haven't found that. And the other thing that's crazy about it is...
They probably are still in the country,
Well,
but
I bet they are
the
because...
children were extradited, or deported, but the parents were not.
Well, I was just thinking maybe if the parents got deported previously and she like stayed in the country with family or something and grew up until now that she's past 18, the government can come
problem
after
is that
her.
she never had any control over any of this in the first place. It was some adults who had control, and
True.
this is all because of the law. Like, how can you do this to somebody? Like, how can you harm somebody again, like after you've denied them like human rights basically to have their own defense, but they didn't because you told them they couldn't because they were a minor, and it's like, and now you just get to you just need to deport. You just get to deport them.
Well, another thing that's crazy about it is she wasn't traveling out of the country. She wasn't trying to come back in. She was traveling from Boston to, I think, Texas to visit family. So I think her family's there.
There's something that interesting story I actually have. So I recently bought a plane ticket with Bitcoin or some sort of crypto anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this is with a self-custody wallet, and I got a hotel room as well, same company. And when the hotel went through just fine, when the airfare appeared to go through just fine as well. But then I get an email saying that I tripped their AML, which stands for anti-money laundering procedure.
Well,
and the question is, why would I have tripped their AML? Well, the only reason would be because it was a self-custody wallet, and they don't know where the source of funds are. So they're basically trying to force me to identify myself, even though they already have my name and everything, right, and my birth date. They're trying to force me to identify myself in order to get a refund. Even because I said, and actually when they asked for AML stuff, I said, no, I don't want to. And, you can just refund me. And they're like, oh, you have to do AML in order for a refund.
Just for the refund.
Just for the refund. And, but this all goes, kind of all gets into, this nonsense, this absurdities, that these, the government and the airlines and the companies that are,
This was was it the airline? that said all this to you?
This is the company that sold the ticket. So this is to be the booking agent.
Was it?
Basically.
And it wasn't Bit Refill?
No, this would have been Travela or something, I think.
Okay, that's fine.
Anyway.
I was just like, it would have been pretty big news if it was Bit Refill because, you know.
No, but the point is that the AML wasn't tripped because of the hotel there were two separate purchases, by the way, from the same company. The hotel didn't trip AML. It was only the flight that tripped AML, right? So, I mean, just think about this for a moment. They're basically forcing people to identify themselves to travel domestically and not just at the airport gates, right? Not just at the security line.
Whoa.
So
I thought I made this name up. It says another one of the people that were arrested due to TSA tipping off them and giving them information was Marta Brazeda Renderos Lavia. And I literally have it spelled differently. And I wrote how I would pronounce it, Brazeda. And I said, I think I made up this name in a little note on my phone. My mind is blown. When I was a kid, I thought I made up the name Selena. And then I heard somebody got kidnapped named Selena. I was like, that's the name I made up. But it's very possible, you know, I heard it and I didn't realize I heard it. But I thought I made it up based on just like pretty sounds, you know? I mean, it's a little like out there. I don't think I would like...
You know, the chances of you having come up with a unique name are probably pretty slim.
I know, but
only because there are so many people in this world.
Yes.
There's 8 billion 9 billion people in this world.
I might have made up the spelling at least.
The chances are good that somebody else has come up with the same name and the same spelling even that you would have come up with.
That's still blowing my mind. I was like, is that the one I said I wrote? Like, I write down names I like.
You gotta come up with some really bizarre names in order to find or not be able to find somebody else with the same name.
That is seriously crazy. But anyways, the same office also used the same office. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Sorry, because I skipped ahead a little because I told you guys with a different article about the Annie lady or girl, Annie, whatever. Sorry, it's just like that's a really weird spelling. So it really like I'm like, is it Annie? But anyways, that same office also used TSA information to tip off officials to arrest Marta Brazeda Renderos Lavia at a Salt Lake City airport in October. Former ICE official with knowledge of the program told the Times that TSA gave ICE officers photos of potential targets. Whoa, they even got photos.
I mean, this all goes back to the whole...
Oh, they take photos when you go to... Sorry, when you're in line for the TSA now, they'll take photos of you, and I've been just saying no, and you can just say no.
Yeah, refuse. Don't. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But not only that, this just goes to, you know, evidence further that the whole TSA thing is security theater. It was never anything else. Mm-hmm. It's not for security. Use it for other reasons. It has nothing to do with security. It's about control, not security. Mm-hmm. Security you might be able to argue security for preventing people from bringing bombs on planes or guns or something like that. You can't, but that's not what they're actually doing here.
Well, but yeah, you can see that, but they don't do it anyways. They've done studies and all the guns get through TSA.
I know. That's what I mean.
It
like
work.
it's security theater. The whole Real ID thing, same thing. The terrorists had valid passports or driver's licenses, actually, issued by, I think it was Florida, if I recall correctly. The point is that none of this stops terrorism. None of this makes us any safer. It's literally a mechanism of being able to control people, and it's not. And this is an example of people who are immigrants, but they also use it to control American citizens as well.
Agreed.
What is it with the Real ID now?
Americans.
Do you just pay off the TSA?
Oh no, I went to
$50 or something?
No, I went into the. I keep forgetting to tell the listeners this. I flew twice without Real ID. Have you flown since they said you have to have Real ID?
I have not.
Oh,
I had a trip planned for January 11th, but I ended up not actually having to go. Because I could do a remote testimony for a trial that I'm supposed to testify at. So.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, when I did it, flying to Alabama and back, basically they just will be like, "Hey, we got someone who doesn't have Real ID." They rub something on your hands. I didn't refuse it. Ian probably would have wanted me to refuse it, but I didn't refuse that. They just rub this little soft thing on my hands, and then they put it in a machine to see if you have
that's the bomb detector.
Bomb stuff on your hands.
Yeah, bomb residue is what it detects.
And they asked me a bunch of questions in a really snarky way, like, "Where are you going? You got family there?" And they ask you way more extra questions.
Yeah.
But it says though the airlines have previously provided TSA with passenger information to provide or to compare with federal databases. The agency has generally steered clear of domestic, criminal, or immigration matters, said one former agency official who spoke to the Times on the condition of anonymity. Oh, wow. Okay. So I was going to ask, like, the whole thing where somebody told the Times, and a TSA agent gave the Times that information about the Marta Brazeda Renderos La Vea lady. I did wonder if they're just openly like, hey, just so you know, this is happening. Like, are they allowed to, like, are they giving their names and everything? But, well, did you want to talk about the
paper checks?
Yes, the Fed ending paper checks. Are they making paper checks illegal? I don't know. I just want to hear about it.
So this is the story. It's from CNN Business. Could paper checks be on the way out, like the penny? So it's interesting because it's apparently the government is involved in paper checks, and I didn't know this necessarily, I don't think. But when the U.S. Mint stopped making pennies last month for the first time in 238 years, it drew a lot of attention. But there have been quiet moves to stop using paper checks as well. The government stopped sending out most paper checks to recipients as of the end of September, part of an effort to fully modernize federal benefits payments. And on Thursday, the Federal Reserve put out a notice that suggested it is considering, but only considering, the winding down of checking services it now provides for banks. And so basically what that means is that if they decide to no longer provide the service, how are banks going to, do checks? Because they're using the federal government for the checking. Basically, they're a customer of the federal government.
So what does the federal government do in this case? Because like Ian and I, whenever we've bought checks, we never buy it from the bank. We buy them from like a check company. Like the Fed gives them those checks.
Well, I think those checks all end up going to a government, and then they do the clearing from there, something like that. The central bank statement said that as an alternative to winding down those services, it is mulling more investment in its check processing services. So they're providing apparently some sort of check processing service, but noted that would come at a higher cost. But it is also considering not making any such investments in order to keep costs roughly unchanged. That would lead to reduced reliability of those services going forward. Over time, check use has steadily declined. Digital payment methods
have grown. I still need it for tons of stuff. So what the heck?
Yeah, I know. And this is the thing. People still use checks all the time for things like, for example, to pay maybe your lawn care guy, or somebody comes to the house to fix a furnace.
Everything I pay with the city.
The same thing here. I pay the city as well with checks, which is kind of a mistake because they like to, not keep their stuff secure, and then your account gets taken over. But anyway.
Oh my God. Well, I did want to say what I Googled. What does the Fed do with paper checks? It says it processes paper checks for banks by acting as a central clearinghouse, receiving checks from local banks, crediting their accounts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I just wanted to know what are they even saying they have to do? Okay, that makes sense. So they don't make the checks.
So how does that work with so did they just want direct deposit then?
Yeah, what are they going to do?
They want to force everybody into digital payments because I think it has to do with basically being able to control you. It's easier to control you when everything's digital. It's a lot harder to control people when you have other options.
Checks out to me.
Checks remain the important payment mechanism for consumers and businesses, you said. Discontinuing Federal Reserve check services is not an efficient solution to the growing problem of payment fraud, particularly in light of the ongoing role of checks in the payments system. The history of checks is a little uncertain, but they are thought to date back nearly 2,400 years. Yes, 2,400 years.
Whoa.
The first modern checks gained popularity more than 500 years ago. In the early 1500s in Amsterdam, Holland, people who had accumulated cash began depositing it with the Dutch cashiers for a fee and a safer alternative to keeping the money at home. Then the cashiers agreed to pay the debts out of the money in each account based on the depositor's written order or note to do so, said a post in the history of checking on the site CheckKeeper, an online check printing service. The end of paper checks could cause problems for consumers who don't have access to a traditional bank account and who still depend on the small slips of paper to receive some of their funds, including their paycheck. About 6% of adults were unbanked in 2024, according to the Federal Reserve. I know people who are unbanked, and they're American citizens, born and raised here. It's kind of. I actually know people who were using Bitcoin and didn't have a bank account or credit cards or debit card of any kind in order to do online banking. And people don't realize this, but you can still, in some instances, use money orders and cashier's checks to buy stuff online. So there's still uses for those products and services.
Wait, but using checks online?
Well, you send a check in the mail, and then you place the order online, and then when they receive the check, they send you the goods.
I guess I've never done that in any way that I can think of.
So you guys are too young.
Yeah.
I don't
think I have you.
Yeah, that's it's kind of like catalog ordering. Like, think of like an internet catalog instead of a printed one. You gotta
but I've never
send
done
your
either.
order like with a check.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I used a money order, I was like 11 years old, and it was a time period in which the credit cards were barely being accepted yet on the internet.
Yeah, I guess I have sent a check in with something, but it's an application to the government. It's always government. It's almost always government when I have to use a check. Like, I used to have to pay my rent directly to, literally I'd write to the, what did I write? It was like one of the like federal, like, what is that called? What's the Fed?
The
Federal Reserve?
I think it was to the Federal Reserve. No, not
or
the
was
Federal
it to the
Reserve.
Department of Defense?
No. But it was on
okay.
Dugway, and it was directly to, I think, the Fed. But either what I'm trying to say is because I lived on a military base.
Yeah, some sort of federal agency,
like the United States federal government. Is that who you?
No.
I
remember being like, "This is crazy." I'm writing it to. How was the Fed?
Here's the interesting thing: 10% of Americans don't even have a smartphone. So they're trying to force this stuff down our throats, basically, and against our will. All in the name of I don't even know if they even said in the name of security here, but they often use that to try and get people to agree, and it's not security. It's completely
in this case, like, maybe they're trying to say like, oh well, not enough people use it, and like just hope that people go along with that because they're trying to use it like it's exactly the same as the penny.
10% of Americans don't even have a smartphone. Okay. So just think about that for a minute. Okay. You're basically saying that anybody over the age of 60 is like not allowed to like pay their bills anymore because
that's how they do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, before my dad passed away, he had the hardest of time using a smartphone. Now he did have a computer, but a lot of stuff these days, people were trying to push him to use a smartphone and he couldn't do it. He just didn't have the faculties. He had not lost anything like up here, but just the overall abilities, to use a smartphone. Smartphones are challenging, and I think a lot of young people don't really understand that. I didn't grow up with smartphones, but I did grow up using Palm Pilots and things like that. And even though I've picked up those skills, I still I very well understand. And I'm in my 40s now, but I very well understand the challenges, particularly somebody who's on the older side, is going to face with,
especially like my grandma can barely see like her phone.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
It's always like blowing my mind.
Yeah, I mean, and some of these things, I can already, personally experience a little bit of, when it comes to just looking at a computer screen, for example. Sometimes it's hard to see the computer screen or focus in on, text on the screen. It takes a little bit longer to focus in on it, and so even like you think about people, grandma having a hard time using a smartphone for digital payments. Well, even if you give her a computer, she's gonna have a hard time with it, right?
Makes no sense. Sarah only owns a dumb phone.
Yeah.
She's not old.
I deal with a lot of old people every day, and I'm telling you, it's like even just getting a credit card number over the phone from somebody, it can be a challenge.
It's been Free Talk Live. You can see more of us tomorrow, same time, and also freetalklive.com. Thanks for listening. Peace.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
Eleutheromania. The insatiable desire for freedom.
We have been enslaved for all our lives.
It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass.
The next ones they will.
Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
Authority to end our.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Coming up next after the news, Hour 1 of the latest episode of Free Talk Live here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The United States launched airstrikes against ISIS in the north of Nigeria on Christmas Day. U.S. President Donald Trump said they were to send a message to insurgents in the country who he claims are persecuting Christians. FSN's Jagruti Dave has more from Washington.
Donald Trump has been threatening military intervention in Nigeria for some time, and this was the justification he gave for these strikes, which he described as deadly in a social media post. He said ISIS terrorist scum have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. He added, "Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues." US Africa Command said their initial assessment is that multiple ISIS terrorists